All right, we are ready to get started. Today is Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. This is the City Council work session that I am calling to order and giving notice to the members of the City Council and to the general public that at this work session, the City Council may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for discussion and consultation with the city's attorneys for legal advice on any item listed on the following agenda. Can we have roll call?
Mayor Daggett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Aslan.
Present.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember House.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Sweet. Here.
Councilmember McCarthy, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would. Please stand if you're able.
The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Thank you, Mayor. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you. Next up is open call to the public. This is where the public can address council about an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Any comments related to items that are on the agenda will be taken at the time that that item is discussed. Open call to the public appears twice on the agenda, now for 30 minutes and then at the end of the meeting for any remaining comments. If you wish to address the council either during public comment or on one of tonight's items, please fill out a comment card that they're located in the back. You have 3 minutes and there's a timer here. And during open call to the public, the council can't have any back and forth with you. We can't answer questions or ask you questions. So, first up we have Dr. Emily Davalos.
I have lived in Flagstaff for 25 years, and I have come to witness that city code and regulations are either meaningless because they can't be enforced, or they're only enforced at the discretion of city staff. Seems to me if it's the latter, that opens up the city to lawsuits for discriminatory behavior. There is a lack of upholding codes and regulations to ensure the safety and well-being of residents in the historically Mexican neighborhood, La Plaza Vieja, so that a property owner can build a 3-story Airbnb while consistently and continually violating code and building regulations. Evan Horowitz started the project in July of 2021, submitted a revised building design from a structural engineer who was operating without a valid license in February of 2023. He submitted a revision in November of 2023. His permit was expired. It was finally designated a dangerous building, and city staff gave him another 6 months to pay the fee for his last extension in May. He has now had 3 years and has done the bare minimum to the property. It has been an attractive nuisance when people partying on the property. A couple living out of their car parked in front for over 24 hours. The man attacked the woman with a crowbar and slashed all the tires, which led to a police-filled street in the middle of the night. There have been beer cans littered all over the property with children living on the street. He has been operating in bad faith, as explained by city staff. He erected a wall he didn't have a permit to erect. Building materials have flown off the construction site to the other side of my house. His friends who laid the concrete assaulted me, and even though officers said it was 99 out of 100 for assault, they did nothing. I have been documenting the garbage all over the property and emailing it to an email thread with city staff, mayor included, as well as the chief of police. I went out while he happened to be there, and he called the police on me for wearing this sweatshirt that says Gaza, the soul of my soul, at the end of April. The next time he was at the property at the end of June, he called the police again because he didn't like my music. He has had workers there for 3 days in a row working without a toilet. His building inspector told him yesterday he needed a toilet there immediately. He continued to work for another 7 hours, showed up again today at 6:30, has been there all day, no toilet. I saw a worker peeing outside on the property yesterday. He has also had workers out in thunderstorms with thunder and lightning. I filed a complaint with OSHA today. He breaks a host of codes and regulations while calling the police on the residents for no reason, and they stand there protecting him from me because of my sweatshirt. I don't understand why the city continues to let him consistently and continually violate code and the requirements on his building permit. That tells me that the codes and requirements for his building permit don't mean anything because you're not enforcing them. I feel like I should do others a service to let them know if they ever get cited for breaking these codes and requirements, to contact me so I can give them proof that the city did nothing else when other people break and violate them. Seems to me this behavior opens up the city for a lawsuit, so I suggest you do something about this immediately. I have more details to give you, but I don't have time to list them. So please take care of this property and do something to enforce the codes and the regulations. Otherwise, why do we have them?
Matthew Dyer.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Dyer. I'm the owner of Southside Tavern at 117 South San Francisco Street. Got a couple of things that have been bothering me recently. I've been calling the city about getting the trash dumpster moved back to its original spot. It was moved because of a mural being put up. Since then, I've called multiple times, and since the mission is reopened, there's been a lot of homeless people around the dumpster. And it's putting my staff in danger. I have these 20, 21-year-old girls having to walk past these people. If you want, you can email me. I have videos of it. And, you know, they feel threatened. They're being followed. You know, they get catcalled and all this stuff. And I'm having to hire extra security just to make sure that they feel safe. And it's become a real issue. Not only that, with it being reopened, there's been a lot more crime, graffiti, decrease in business. I don't really know what the solution is, honestly, but just to put it on your radar, if we want the downtown Flagstaff Southside to thrive, that it's something that needs to be taken care of. The other thing I wanted to bring up is we've had a lot of police being called because of noise complaints. I know I talked to Mr. McCarthy about this last time. I did reach out to the residents. I did leave them letters. I left them my personal number and email. I got a couple emails back, but it's still, it happens, and I don't know what the solution is. I mean, I'm the third business owner to have to go through this. I feel like I'm being harassed. I'm doing everything I can to try and take care of it. But I mean, maybe if there was a noise ordinance for decibels, that would help. I don't know. There's no rules around it. But my business suffers. Their sleep suffers. I mean, it's just very frustrating at this point because I'm doing everything I can, but it's not enough. I mean, if you move next to an airport and it gets busier and there's more airplanes, you're not going to complain about more airplanes. So now that my bar is being more successful and more people are coming, how am I supposed to control the people that, you know, they go outside and they talk? I mean, it's freedom of speech, freedom to gather. So other than that, I mean, I don't know how else to do more. I've decreased the base. I've increased how fast the door closes for it and everything. And this has been going on for about 8 years, and I just want to get it solved because I don't plan on going anywhere. You know, that place has always, you know, been a bar for the last, at least I know, for 10 years. It's gone through 3 owners that have all dealt with this problem, and I want to solve it, but I don't know how. So I know that I've emailed the council before. You should all have my email. If you have any suggestions, please reach out to me. And if you want any of the videos of what's going on down there at night, I have videos, and I'm calling the police almost every day now. I wasn't having to before, but people don't feel safe down there. But thank you.
Jacob Ratz.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Jacob Ratz, and I am an energy specialist with the City Sustainability Office. This is a brief informational update on an opportunity for Arizona residents to learn more about making the transition to rooftop solar. Solar United Neighbors, Vote Solar, the cities of Flagstaff and Phoenix, and the Arizona Solar Energy Industries Association are working together to host a statewide webinar focused on teaching homeowners how to shop for rooftop solar the correct way. This event is focused on homeowners with and without existing solar who are curious about tax credits, warranties, and overall maintenance of solar systems. Speakers will also cover best practices for shopping for solar, including tips for finding reputable installers and comparing bids, what to expect from installation, red flags to look out for, and information about incentives and financing. The event will be hosted online on July 30th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Arizona time. Whether you are interested in making the transition to rooftop solar in the future or you have already made the switch, I encourage everyone to check out this opportunity. We will be forwarding the registration link for this event to both mayor and council members to share with the broader Flagstaff community. And for those that are listening in online, you can register on the Solar United Neighbors website, which is solarunitedneighbors.org. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Dennis Givens.
Thank you, Mayor Daggett, Austin. What's up? City Council, Vice Mayor, I'm sorry. Staff, citizens, police officers, welcome today. I'm here today to wish everyone a happy Health Awareness Day. And it's not about exercise or eating healthy or just being out in nature. It's all about being happy and having fun. And I just wish the best for everyone. And make sure you guys are living life and on your pursuit of happiness. I'm here today to talk about community gardens. The city's been really stepping up and taking care of the community gardens. I have a garden plot at Bonita Street Community Garden, and it's been the best year ever. So many people have been out there. All the plots are taken up. And I just think it's better for the future generations if we just localize having community gardens, maybe put like a farmer's market next to it. I know we have one in City Hall parking lot, which is awesome. We could put restaurants next to it and just really centralize everything so we're not just so spread out. We're more, the regional plan, I know they want to centralize everything. So, yeah, everyone start gardening and get in touch with nature and just be happy. And I have this blue shirt today. I got it at Babbitt's. Support small businesses. And also, I believe that we should also promote martial arts. I know there's a lot of police officers today, and I know that if the citizens and the police officers all learn martial arts, it'll just be, the studies show that it's just safer communities when we all know how to defend ourselves. So I think we should definitely fund more martial arts and health and wellness. And yeah, and I know I talked about the homeless shelter on the south side. I live on the south side. And I just think maybe we should just move it to like a location where maybe in the forest where they can get in touch with nature. They could have like a garden or something. They can learn trades. They can camp out, have fun. We could give them mental help, substance abuse, counseling. You guys know the answers. I don't know all the answers, but we could definitely solve these problems together. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a script today, but I just want to tell you I appreciate you all, and I appreciate all the people in this room, and I feel really safe today. And yeah, just keep on pursuing happiness and also liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. All right, we're moving down to item number 5, review of draft agenda for the July 2nd, 2024 City Council meeting. And if you haven't seen the July 2nd agenda, you have to put in July because we are in June. So when you look at it online, does anyone have any questions or comments about this agenda? All right, then we will move down to the highlight of this evening, which is number 6, the swearing in of Police Chief Sean Connolly. And I believe our City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We're going to do a little tag team on this. I'll kick it off. It is the highlight of the evening for all of us. I'll offer some comments here, and I think I'll be joined by Dan Musselman, and we'll get on with the ceremony. The city is excited to welcome Sean Connolly to the city of Flagstaff. He has spent the last few weeks getting to know the community and the many stakeholders and partners. Sean served for over 30 years in law enforcement prior to joining Flagstaff's city team. He served as the operational executive assistant police chief, assistant police chief, police commander, and lieutenant for various divisions, bureaus, and precincts during his tenure with the Phoenix Police Department. Sean holds a master's degree in educational leadership from NAU here in Flagstaff and a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Arizona. He is also a graduate of the University of Arizona's Fundamentals of Governmental Leadership program and Georgetown University's School Justice Partnerships program. Sean was actually born in Flagstaff and is looking forward to serving as Flagstaff's next police chief. I might turn it over at this point to Dan Musselman, who has some comments. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Thank you for sharing in this tradition with us this evening. There are a few dignitaries in the room I just wanted to mention. If you would, just please stand and give a wave of the hand. The Chandler Chief of Police, Brian Chapman. Sean Conley's parents, Pat and Barbara. Nick DePonzio, Assistant Chief, Phoenix PD. Charmaine Osborne, Assistant Chief, Phoenix PD. Sean Kennedy, Assistant Chief, Phoenix PD. And Joe Klima, if he made it in, Assistant Chief, Phoenix PD. If we had that many Assistant Chiefs, we'd be doing awesome, I'll just say. But we'll get on with the show. So at this point, I wanted to invite up the Honorable Judge Thomas Chotina to do the oath of office and your next police chief, Sean Conley.
If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sean Patrick Conley,
I, Sean Patrick Conley,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of Chief of Police according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
The next order of business is to invite up a very influential person who's allowed to pin the badge on the new chief, and for this honor, he chose his father, Pat Conley.
Just been a joy to raise and to watch and grow, and go Jacks.
We've also invited our police chaplain, Nathaniel Bradford, up to do a blessing on the new chief, as well as the police department and our staff.
Well, Chief, there's a scripture that I share with every academy graduate when I'm there to pray over them. It's a scripture that I love sharing, and I want to share it with you as Chief Dan Musselman is riding up to the sunset, and you are coming in just as Joshua is now getting ready to stand in those and fill those big sandals that Moses wore. The scripture is found in Joshua 1:9. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Let us pray Heavenly Father, we gather this evening to celebrate and to acknowledge the swearing in of Chief Sean Connolly. You are the Father of all new beginnings and new energy. Let us rejoice in this moment to celebrate our new chief and also to thank Chief Dan Musselman for the years of his service to this department and this city. Father, we pray that you will empower our new chief with the wisdom of Solomon to lead with integrity and grace, to listen to the needs of this department and our city, to remind him that he has a team of dedicated men and women who will assure him that he's not alone. And Father, we lift up his family. We pray, Father, you would give them the peace of knowing that you would never leave them nor forsake them. And Father, I pray that you will remind his family that, as the scriptures say, to be still and know that I am God. I pray for your blessings over them. I pray for your continued blessings over this city, this council, our mayor, and all law enforcement, men and women who serve their various communities. We pray for all the first responders and their families as well. And we give you all the praise, glory, and honor. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ our Lord, amen.
And with that, we'll turn it over to your new police chief for some comments.
Mayor, members of council, city leadership. City Manager Clifton said I only had about an hour to say a few words. But for the sake of brevity and the movement of city governance, I'll make sure I slow that down.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. So thank you. Gratitude, gifts, and greatness. I want to give immense gratitude to the trust that you've bestowed upon me. City Manager Clifton, the rest of Team Flagstaff. In the brief 2 weeks I've been here, I have been moved beyond belief related to the teamwork and the collaboration and the mindsets with which everybody is working in this city. And I'm so humbled by all of it on a whole host of levels. To the process. I think we become byproducts of process at times. I want to tell a quick story. While I was embarking upon this process, a peer of mine, Brian Chapman, was also involved in a process in Chandler. And we were cross-pollinating on notes. And I'll just say this is a world-class process that is incredibly thorough. I think they asked him 3 questions and asked him to do a push-up. And at the end of the day, he became their chief. So kudos to this city, kudos to this community that showed up and asked very tough questions of everybody. A world-class process for a world-class community and a world-class city. So we talked about gratitude. Gifts. I have to look at my family as it relates to the gift of life. My mom and dad met here in the 60s. My mom worked at the Dairy Queen. My dad was an underground copper miner for 27 years in southern Arizona and put our family, clothed us and housed us on a whole host of levels working underground. And my mom was a special education school teacher that passed away at the age of 40 in the 4th week of a police academy. I had some special words with her before she passed that I've tried to live by in life. The other thing I learned by that passing is to the men and women of my prior organization, because I promised to never say the P word while I'm here. Is I watched an organization love and wrap themselves around a young recruit at that time and make sure that he was successful. And I've carried that in my DNA since day one. To my sister, my son, my sons, to my family and friends and those that I love the most in life, just thank you so much for everything. You've taught me so much. The gifts that matter. Greatness. When we talk about greatness, this is a conversation for the men and women of the Flagstaff Police Department and the community. This is a great elite community. This is a great elite police department. But I want to be very clear. These are not our uniforms for the community in here and for the members. We rent these for a very small window of time in the history of this community, and with that comes an incredible responsibility based on moral authority. And so as we embark upon taking the foundations, Chief Musselman, thank you. Thank you. And for all the forefathers, I recognize that I'm not from here, and that's a big deal for everybody. But the foundations laid by the men and women of this police department are awesome. And as we move forward, we will make sure that we lead this community in a whole host of ways. We listen aggressively. And at the end of the day, this is about wisdom. This is about courage. This is about temperance and a sense of justice. And I look forward beyond so many ways to be able to take this community and this police department to where it wants to go together collectively. The answers are in the community around us. So gratitude, gifts, and the greatness of this community and this police department in this city. I just want to say thank you, and I hope I didn't exceed my 3 minutes, and we'll go from there. But thank you so much to everybody. It just means the world to be here. I look forward, and let's get to work. Let's get to work.
I knew he couldn't do it in 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I also want to, on behalf of all of us here, thank the many dignitaries who are in the room who came up to join us for this ceremony. It's wonderful to have you here. Before we conclude this, there is one more thing that we would like to do to finish off this ceremony. I think we also owe a big thanks to Marianne Sullivan for entertaining us with lovely bagpipes. Nice way to close this off. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Do we normally do photos up here?
Yes.
This has never happened in my time here.
I think photos and then maybe some push-ups. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. Okay.
Council member, yes.
City Manager, I think you were remiss, actually, because you mentioned all his master's degrees and all this. But it all started with his diploma from Rincon High School. Now, why would I bring that up? Because I also have a diploma from Rincon High School, Tucson, Arizona. Thank you.
So, Council, will you join me down at the edge of the dais? And Chief, if you would join us up here.
recent intake. Yes. Come on. We're slowing the progress. We're good.
It's just a city manager's report after this.
He's a firefighter, so you gotta help him. I love you. You want us to leave?
So if you don't have to leave, but if you would like to leave now, I'll give you a couple of minutes to exit. So, council, I probably shouldn't have had you sit down. Could you join me down at the edge of the dais for 2 proclamations? Thank you. Two-spirit individuals have been present in indigenous communities since before time and in memoriam for countless generations that predate LGBTQ plus terminology. For generations, two-spirit Native cultures went underground to avoid detection and persecution. The term two-spirit was adopted in 1990 at the International Native Gay and Lesbian Gathering in Winnipeg, Canada, as a means of unifying various gender identities and expressions of Native Americans, First Nations, Indigenous individuals. The term is not a specific definition of gender or sexual orientation, but rather an umbrella term. Two-spirit people have both a male and female spirit within them and are blessed by their Creator to see life through the eyes of both or multiple genders. The City of Flagstaff recognizes that claiming the role of Two-Spirit is to take on the spiritual responsibility that the role traditionally has. Walking the Red Road, which includes supporting all of our Indigenous relatives and the environment, to be a guiding force with a good mind, good intention, and a good heart, and these are just a few of the responsibilities. Now, therefore, I, Becky Daggett, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, do hereby proclaim June 25th, 2024, as Two-Spirit Day in Flagstaff, Arizona. And next up, we have a proclamation for Parks and Recreation. So anyone who is here for that, please come down and join us here. And Councilmember Harris is going to read this proclamation.
All right, are we all? Are we all here? Okay, I think we're all here. If it's okay, Mayor, I'm going to just take 1 minute to just say something before I read the proclamation. I've lived in this city for over 30 years, and the Parks and Rec staff took me on my first hike to Pitcher Canyon. So I have a special place in my heart for them. I think I hiked a mile. Was that a mile? Yeah.
Probably more.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, you were there. So anyway, so that's really special for me. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of the city of Flagstaff, and whereas Parks and recreational opportunities are fundamental to creating, building, and maintaining a healthy, diverse, and enriching community through a variety of programs and activities. And whereas the Parks section maintains 700 acres of park grounds, 59 miles of the urban trail system, the citizen cemetery services and operations, and snow operations to provide a safe and healthy community. And whereas the recreation section programs outdoor and indoor athletics, programming, and classes at a variety of recreational centers, which provides a livable community. And whereas the open space section maintains 3,500 acres of protected open spaces, creating passive recreation, wildlife, educational opportunities, which provides environmental stewardship. And whereas the events section manages 1,500 private events on city-owned properties, produces signature events, and markets the division's programming offerings for an inclusive and engaged community. And whereas Parks and Recreation begins with the children and youth of Flagstaff, who are provided with a variety of enriching environments, educational opportunities, and physical programs, fostering their love for fun. And whereas the Parks and Recreation continues into adulthood, where community connections are established through indoor and outdoor athletics events in our parks and classes in our recreation facilities. And whereas Parks and Recreation supports our aging adult population with opportunities to maintain and improve physical health, enjoy passive recreation. And now, therefore, I, on behalf of Mayor Becky Daggett, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, do hereby proclaim July 2024 as Flagstaff Parks and Recreation Month. Who gets this? I don't know. Who gets this? There you go.
So we can get everybody. Squeeze in. Hello. Does that mean smile? All right. Amy, does anyone want to say anything?
Oh, Mayor Daggett, I think we say plenty.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, if we can have the Parks employees hang out for just a minute in the room here. Yeah, if you guys can gather around. And I would like to ask all of the staff in the back of the room if you could make your way up to the front of the room just for a few moments. Mayor, thanks for letting me hijack the meeting from you. Yeah. Now, it's actually a mandate that the staff come to the front of the room at this time.
We have a bad case of senioritis right now.
Yeah, we're quickly seeing just how much authority is actually exhibited in the city manager's office. Mayor, if I may, and council, we are going to, in just a moment, hear about our June work anniversaries, but I am deviating from script just a little bit here to make yet another very important introduction. Tonight's meeting is all about celebration of bringing new employees into the organization in leadership capacities. I'd like to introduce in just a moment Corey Vogt, and I gave you her background last time, but I'm going to restate it again for all of our benefit. As of today, as of yesterday, Corey has started as our new Human Resources and Risk Manager Director. She came to us courtesy of a professional recruiter, and after a very well-vetted process, Corey was emerged as our #1 candidate, and fortunately she accepted our offer, and now she's joining our leadership team, bringing to the team now the full slate at our leadership table for the first time in probably more than 3 years. So it's very monumental for all of us, excuse me. Corey has shared with us that she's very excited to be here, and I would like to ask her to come up to the podium and share a little bit about herself. She has a fascinating background. She has a rich background in the area of human resources at the municipal level. She comes to us from a ranching family in Montana. She's very happy to be in Flagstaff. And Corey, can I get you to come up to the podium?
Well, it is my privilege to be here and to be introduced. I feel like I'm joining just a fantastic group of people from the mountains of Montana through the Phoenix Valley to the mountains of Flagstaff. I'm ready to call Flagstaff my home. I feel very welcome here. I'm happy and excited to be here. I've had some great conversations. I want to meet each and every one of you, have those conversations. Let's lead by example. I think that we all have a privilege to be a part of this beautiful city, and let the journey begin.
Before we hear the June anniversaries, would it be appropriate for one more photo opportunity with Corey? Okay.
Everybody say Corey.
Mayor and Council, I am Joanne Keene, your Deputy City Manager, presenting on the June employee work anniversaries. We have a very short presentation today. I don't know, it looks like we have not hired many people in June until this year. It looks like we have quite a few. So next year we'll have more on the list. These are some individuals who are celebrating their first year with the City of Flagstaff. Several employees from PD, pros, library, water services, IT. Moving on, we also have some individuals also in pros. Mark Adams, who is with Flagstaff Fire, our Wildland Community Risk Reduction Specialist. I think I recall all of you going out and setting a fire with Mr. Adams. IT, and then also Public Works as well. We have 2 5-year anniversaries that we're celebrating this year. The first is Rob Spear, who is an IT manager in our IT department. And also Linda Thoralt, who is a visitor services assistant in our Flagstaff Convention and Visitors Bureau. And Mayor and Council, that is all I have today. So as I mentioned, it's a short presentation. We have a lot of celebrations today, and next year we'll have more on the list. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. And City Manager, dazzle us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thanks for allowing us to deviate just a bit. We don't typically do that, but I just want to impress upon you the obvious by now. We're so excited for these new introductions to the team here, so it's been a great event for us. Thank you. It's great for the community. This report this time around is very short. It follows the last work session's report, which was very long. So I'm going to keep it brief. There's a little update more on federal funding from Bob Holmes, our lobbyist in Washington. A couple of tidbits on beautification, things that are happening downtown, along with the new steps that are happening in front of City Hall. Stay tuned. Those will be coming to finality here soon. I gave you a copy of the agenda for the Alliance meeting that we attended last Friday. It was a very good meeting. And of course, some nice photos from last time when we honored Chief Musselman here at the dais. Thank you very much for joining us in that. It was a great event. We do have 2 monthly reports to share with you. The first will be sustainability. And Nicole will give you that update, and then we'll follow that with economic vitality, and Heidi Hansen will give you that one remotely. So, Nicole?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Nicole Antonopoulos, Sustainability Director. I'm a little intimidated to go after all of those celebrations, but I love that I'm actually providing this combined May and June update for the Council ahead of Heidi Hansen, and I'm going to try to beat her time, just giving you 1 month overview, and I'm going to give you a 2-month. So I'm really thankful to the mayor for accepting an invitation to speak on behalf of the Green Schoolyards program on the Flagstaff community in an Environmental and Energy Study Institute congressional briefing. This focused on cities leading the way in nature-based solutions. So expressing sincere gratitude for the mayor to take out time in her schedule to represent Flagstaff and all the work we're doing to bring a focus on nature-based solutions. The other big highlight that we have in our report for you this month is that in partnership with Economic Vitality and Arizona Forward, we introduced our Flagstaff Green Business Boot Camp. And that concluded in early June with presentations from 4 participating local Flagstaff businesses, including Shift Kitchen and Bar, Kickstand Cafe, Arizona Behavior Health Associates, and Knackered Pepsi. The businesses will implement and share project results to reduce their water, their energy, and transportation costs. The second Green Business Boot Camp cohort will start in September, and we'll be providing a lot of information for inviting community business members to participate. Now, focusing on our climate action, you heard a lot from us last week, so I'm not going to go into too much, but I also wanted to focus on the first cohort of our climate resilience leaders. And so you're noticing that we're doing a lot of work in the community to engage across every sector. The climate resilience leaders was a 6-week course, and our first cohort completed that. They focused on building neighborhood resilience to climate change, and participants learned about climate issues facing Flagstaff neighborhoods, developing leadership skills, and beginning projects to increase neighborhood resilience, including the development of communication systems, establishing litter-free libraries, and creating pollinator habitats. So we're really excited about that program, and there is a link in the monthly report that can take you to more information. Also included in the report is a photo of our first cohort. I would like to say that this was introduced by one of our AmeriCorps members, Gracie Reckenmeyer, and she developed and implemented this program as part of her service term with us, and we're very grateful for the model and the framework that she's pulled together. In equity engagement, I wanted to mention that the climate team directly engaged with nearly 400 people in May and June as we continue to focus on our outreach across the community. In our building fuel switching and reduction of energy use, I know you heard a lot about this last week, I wanted to emphasize that our home weatherization and energy rebate program continues to serve residents throughout our community. And for a total over the fiscal year, we've provided resources to 145 residences with a nearly $168,000 in assistance to improve efficiency and home safety. I want to provide a quick update on the citywide energy conservation project that we are working on with NORESCO. And we are now focusing on water and water conservation, and flow meters and sensors were installed in 17 parks to help improve water efficiency and provide real-time data to detect and stop leaks and adjust for weather. We also have a link in our report that brings you to a real-time GIS site that shows you where we're working and then the impacts of that work with the Energy Conservation Project. Moving on to transportation and electrification, 12 new Level 2 electric vehicle charging ports were installed at Core Services. We're really excited. And 2 Level 2 charging ports were added to the East Side Utility Shop as part of that energy conservation project. So that brings us to a total of 14 more. And I want to focus on our youth engagement. This is something we've talked a fair amount about, especially as our Flagstaff youth brought forward the climate emergency declaration. We have a AmeriCorps service term with youth, and we have 2 high school sustainability officers, Nick Garcia and Catherine Lee, and they have just been doing a phenomenal job and exceeding our expectations, and we are really thrilled just to highlight their work that they're doing with us, and you'll get to hear more about that. But this is just to show that we are really working hard to focus on climate action in our young adults. Now, moving over to neighborhood engagement and volunteer services. Again, these are combined stats, but over the course of May and June, we had over 600 volunteers working to remove litter from our urban trail system, our avenues throughout the community, and our stream sections. And we hosted 12 litter cleanups, 63 bags of recycling were collected, 156 bags of trash. 605 people volunteered over 1,370 hours in our community. There's some pretty astonishing photos included in our report. We have been partnering internally with our friends in Open Space as well as Discover Flagstaff to host weed removals, litter abatements, and so forth. And just want to express our gratitude to that continued internal collaboration to help make our community litter-free. Speaking of stream stewards, the council may recall that this is a relatively new program, and we are exceeding our expectations with adoptions of streams. Over May and June, we had 3 cleanups with 28 people providing more than 48 hours of service to remove 24 bags of trash and 5 bags of recycling from our streams. They are creating a very impactful effort here, and just goes to show the value of our volunteers in this community. Moving on to our Engage, Empower, and Elevate grant, you heard a fair amount from the CATS team 2 weeks ago, but I would like to say that their total service hours equaled more than 1,770 hours in the community, and they picked up collectively almost 800 bags of trash and 340 bags of recycling. Moving on to our employee volunteer policy, which is the city manager's directive, we have seen the number of participants increase in the spring, which is not surprising, but we've had 96 city employees participate at 74 different events, volunteering over 258 hours of service to our community. Now, moving on to food systems, we heard a little bit earlier in public participation, but our community gardens are in full swing, and we've hosted gardener orientation as well as our kickoff potlucks. We've hosted 5 events at various gardens and engaged with over 80 community members. All our community garden plots have been filled, so that's a total of 75 plots across 3 gardens. Moving on to our Mayor's Monarch Pledge, this is a collaboration that we could not do without pros. We have spent a fair amount of time and are very fortunate to have an AmeriCorps assisting us over the summer for moving forward with our National Pollinator Week that we hosted. So throughout June, we collaborated with partners to host a series of community engagement events, including a pollinator art lab, an exploring pollinators art contest, a pollinator fest with the Arboretum, as well as education at the Arboretum Summer Camp, and then a mural gardening planting day. And there are some really nice photos in the report that highlight some of the art that we've seen. In waste prevention, we've collected nearly 5,150 pounds of food waste that's been diverted in the landfill just in May through the residential food scraps drop-off program. And this is a free program that is provided to community members to participate in composting without having to have a compost unit at their home or in their residence.
Nicole, can you remind us where those drop-off areas are?
Absolutely. We have one at the food bank. We have one at the Aquaplex. We have one at the CSA, and I'm absolutely blanking on the final one, but I will provide that in the chat when I get back.
Is there one at your office?
No, we don't. We have Benito Garden. Thank you. That's where we have it.
So I shouldn't just drop my scraps off at your office outside?
We can take care of those for you if you need.
Thank you.
And then we hosted a Fix-It clinic in May, and over 660 pounds of materials were diverted from the landfill because they were fixed. And we had over 60 community members come to our Fix-It clinic to learn how to repair household items. So this is a continuation. I think we're in our 14th year of our Fix-It clinics, and they're wildly successful, and a big thank you to our volunteers. Our food and waste team engaged with more than 600 people in May and June, and our tabling season has just begun. And with that in mind, just want to highlight some of our social media. Our Facebook posts reached more than 28,450 people and directly engaged with almost 750. And we feel really good about our presence, and just want to do a shout out to Sarah Langley and her team for all the assistance and collaboration across the social media platforms. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Council? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nicole. Next, we have Heidi Hansen. She's going to give you an update from Economic Vitality.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Heidi Hansen, Economic Vitality Director. Can you see that I am sharing my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. There is a lot going on always, but I did us all a favor and I highlighted notes so that I would get through this quickly, but make sure that you get the information that you all need. Airport did an airport emergency plan update, and you now all should have in your calendars in September that we will be doing a full-scale exercise. I hope that you will be able to participate that day and see what that is like to do a huge emergency at the airport that we hope we never have. Also, we have Brandon Othon. He's a specialist that joined the ARF, our Airport Rescue Firefighting Team. He did a tree rescue training with our fire department, which is pretty cool. And you can see a picture here on the side of them actually performing that training. As far as airport marketing and air service attraction, you heard last week about the conference at Jumpstart, where Brian Gall, our airport director, and Claire Harper, our communications manager, had meetings with 6 airlines, and right now you see that we are getting a seasonal route to LAX starting in October. Moving on, you see that we continue to market the destination with ads, thanking people for flying Flagstaff first, not driving down to Sky Harbor. And then during our construction, it was really important for us to market that we were having construction and that things were still open. We also received some airport visitors. We always love taking those pictures of the different planes that come into the into Flagstaff. We also had some of you, sorry for the scrolling, I hope this isn't bothering you. We also had Art X events, and one of them was coming down to the airport for the Coconino Scroll event. That beautiful fence project that happens. Hope that if you haven't seen it, please go and see it. But those of you that joined that day, we really appreciate it. As far as grants, we are fully closed now on the $18.2 million for the grants that we got and for CARES. So terminal parking lot, that was the one that we had existing. That got a little bit of a facelift with asphalt crack sealing, seal coating, and restriping. It's not as beautiful as the new one, but it's definitely going to do the trick. And then we also wrapped up improved lighting, wayfinding signage within the terminal, painting, new doors, foyer carpeting, fresh paint, you know it. Last week we did a little bit of a come in and have some ice cream and check out the airport. If you weren't able to do that, we can tour you at any time. I think what you're going to see is it looks bigger. There's so much more room in there because some of these bigger lights and things that probably should have been actually more suited for outdoor lighting have been removed, and we put better lighting in there, and it's actually brightened up the place. And then we've also repainted the cafe, and the visitor center are going to be happening soon. We're in the middle of getting all of that geared up with our contractor. And then it was exciting to see that employments were actually trending up in May. And then we're hoping that will continue to be the trend because American Airlines is going to be adding additional flights to Phoenix, as well as a 3rd flight to Dallas-Fort Worth. And then, of course, the LAX seasonal route. Moving on to community investment, when we're talking about beautification, arts, and science, Jana Weldon has been working with her team on so many projects. And if you were able to join us, and some of you were there for the Liz Archuleta the unveiling at the Liz Archuleta Park, it was really awesome. You can still see those. 5 different artists were in installation of many sculptures. The pieces are wonderful. I'll scroll down so you can see a few of them if you haven't. One after the other. It's hard to even decide which one is the favorite, but please go by there and take a walk. We also restored our monument sign at the airport. It definitely needed a facelift, and we are also going to be working on the one that's over by the mall area. We have ongoing projects always for beautification, and as you can see, our hands are in many things. We're even helping a little bit with the City Hall stairs. We helped with the project of the art painting and Cheshire. And then again, so many to list. I think you saw finally the flowers went in downtown. We were waiting for our landscaper who had a delay in product, but I will tell you, they are looking beautiful, and we have our hanging plants as well as our planters taken care of. Again, with ArtX, we had 3 events that our staff actually did for ArtX, which, again, takes a lot of work. And as you can see, a lot of you are out there supporting the projects, and we, again, appreciate your support. The Beautification in Action grants, there are several that were given out. One in particular that's going to be super cool that I just learned a little bit more about is the Bushmaster Fruit Orchard. So the applicant is working with pros in Mountain Dew Landscaping on the orchard, and we'll be getting more information to share at another meeting with you. They think they'll be able to start planting that in August, and there'll be about 50 trees that are featured. So we'll know more about how that will be shared with the community, I think at our next month. And then I'm going to scroll through some of this. This is just a nice reminder as the BBB renewal is coming up in November that we often share in our reports what it pays for. And so these events like the dance party, what happened at the theater, as well as Coconino Center for the Arts, all of these are made possible through that BBB tax money. Moving on to parking. We love parking, and I will tell you, if you are parking and not paying your dollar, you better watch out, because we are now going to be able to tow you, and we're also going to be able to make sure that you pay. So we're processed nearly 500 vehicles that have actually been on the scofflaw list, and they are getting they're notified that they definitely need to move their vehicles, and that we will definitely start taking action. This is not to be harsh. This is to actually keep the ebb and flow of downtown happening and making sure that people that work at a certain location don't park in front of that location. We want the visitors and the residents to be able to come into the downtown, do their shopping, their eating, and then to be able to leave and then make another spot for the next go around. So this is a very important factor in parking in downtown. We've been maintaining and fixing up parking kiosks whenever they get someone writes on them, graffiti, or if actually someone runs into them, we replace them. And then we also try to do a nice cleaning so that we know that summer's coming and there's going to be a lot more use and people touching them. So you'll see the ambassadors out there doing a lot of work on the kiosks. If you see a kiosk that isn't currently working or not letting you pay it, please let us know, notify me or Dave or Gail Brockman. We want to make sure that we get that up and running. Parking revenues have been continuing to do well. We did over $100,000 in May, which is huge for Park Flag. And we're continuing to see that people are paying to park. Economic development, we wanted to thank you again for all of your support on the Economic Development Strategic Plan that you approved. You also supported us with the Innovate Waste Challenge. And then Mayor Daggett, thank you for proclaiming that our Economic Development Week. As you can see onto the right side of this, there were events Monday through Friday of that week where we got people out to understand economic development and to have help on growing their business. Or actually, if you were an entrepreneur and you were interested in, taking your ideas somewhere, we gave them information about the incubator and the accelerator programs. We also, I'm not going to talk about this too much because Nicole just touched on it, but the Local First Green Business Bootcamp was on its way, and we're happy to support sustainability in that. Here's some shots at Moonshot. They had some classes that they were providing to our entrepreneurs, and so Dave McIntyre, as you can see right here, was out and about supporting that. And then last but not least with it, you helped us get our workforce development analysis and plan approved. Again, you have been seeing a lot of economic development this year. And just so you know, I'm not sure, and I had just touched on this with Dave briefly, The Flagstaff Family Food Center will be under construction in fall and winter, so we are currently looking for a space for them to continue their operations. So if you hear about that, I just want to let you know our team is already on top of it. The library is having major attendance because they do programs that matter in this community. And our Rainbow Readers Day hosted 36 different readers with different languages, which is super cool, which means they get to come out there and they get to read books and they get to do crafts and all these things. And if they have a language that's other than English, there's somebody there to help them and support them at that library. They did a nature puppet show. I only talk about this because they had 63 people that came to this, and they got to sing a song in Spanish, and they learned a Hopi tale. So I will tell you what an exciting thing for parents to be able to bring their children to. Our summer reading challenge is on its way, and we have 80 programs planned for the summer reading challenge. We'll talk about those results later, but we get massive amounts of people that sign up for this, not only just children, but adults. Our reference group, this is a really cool thing to notice. The staff have been working on a grant. This grant was awarded for more collection materials and programs, and it's focusing on the BIPOC communities, which means the Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and environmental justice. So what the staff gets to do with this grant is they get to purchase books. They're going to be ordering a variety of native seeds to work for our seed library over at East Flagstaff, and they're going to be offering programs. And as you can see, there are 7 different dates where they're going to be having different topics and programs that will be offered to the community. All of this can be found on the website. So anybody is interested in participating, please send them to the Flagstaff Library website. East Flagstaff Library continues to do Crafty Corner. I can't even tell you how many people come out to this Crafty Corner, and the children, it gives them something to do during the summer. So again, spread the word. And then we have a climate resilience program. They had their first climate resilience meet and greet at the trailhead, and 20 people met on Observatory Mesa to learn about fire management practices from Neil Chapman. So thank you, Neil, for your continued work with fire safety. The Grand Canyon Library, because again, we do not just do the Main and East Flagstaff libraries, we are all about the county libraries as well. The Grand Canyon had to be moved out of their location into a temporary location, and now because it's been attended so much better, they've actually gotten permission to stay in that location, which I know Linda Tilson, our library director, is super excited about. Tuba City finally got to bring back their summer reading challenge, and I don't know about you, but when I see smiles on faces like this, I think it means it's a very important program, and it's something that is resonating with that community. I'm not going to go into all the staff news. There's a lot of changes at the library, but we are definitely fully staffed. The library stats have been good. And then last but not least, tourism and visitor services. I can't tell you how important it is to have metrics that are increasing. Occupancy was up 3.1%, average daily rate up 3.5%, and revenue per available room up 6.7%. The reason why this is not only fantastic, it is outstanding because of the fact that we have 5.2% more rooms in this Flagstaff community. So we are beating numbers with increased inventory. So I will tell you, hats off to everybody that is working on this. Marketing and media relations, Ryan Randazzo, he is our media manager and killing it. He basically has gotten us more coverage, and the little time that he's been here with the great work that he's doing, and the USA Today's Pet Friendly #1 ranking of Flagstaff had a lot to do with Ryan getting the word out about what we are. We'll see something on CNN about Lowell Observatory. Ryan dabbled in that. I want to tell you, if you see Ryan, tell him great job. We also have been seeing a lot of people interested in the City of Seven Wonders. It's a program that we do. And top social post was about Americana Motor Hotel. We had an insert that went into the Metro Phoenix household, over 200,000. Reason I tell you this one is it's super important. We do it every year. We put it in there right before Memorial Weekend. And we not only talk about the amazing summer festivals that are coming up, a reason to come here. We talk about the Flagstaff Trails Passport, but we talk about fire awareness. And we do this with in conjunction with our fire division and the help of Mark Gaylord's team. If you haven't seen, I think I sent you a prior email, there were tons of information that was given to the affiliate stations, Channel 3, Channel 12, and every single one of them did spots on this, not to mention made tickers on their own websites. We didn't even have to pay for it. To help us spread that message about fire awareness. You know, just goes to show you, Lori Pappas, our marketing media relations manager, she is on top of it, and she is getting these affiliates the information that we need them to have, and they're actually doing it for us. So really appreciate the hard work over there in marketing and media relations. Our website, domestic and international sessions perform strong. Our landing pages are amazing. Things to do, webcam. We have a webcam on top of the visitor center. So if you've never gone to the webcam, check it out. It's pretty cool. It can tell if it's snowing. You can tell if it's raining. You can tell if it's busy in downtown, which is also super cool. We have events, festivals, dining, nightlife, restaurants, and Route 66 that people are actually looking at. And then I thought it was super cool to know that the 25 to 34-year-olds were our highest users. So we're basically hitting all demos, but they are the ones that are actually paying a lot of attention right now. We had Media Assist. We had 11 of them. We hosted 3 journalists in town. We had 112 articles generated by Flagstaff. 112 in 1 month. I'm not talking about in a year, 1 month about Flagstaff. And then some of the themes that we covered, of course, would have to be about dog friendly. The Overland Expo was big time happening in Flagstaff, and then astrotourism. I can't wait for November when Lowell Observatory opens up with their new program. It is going to be bonkers here. And then as you read, you'll see all the other media coverage and stories that we have, again, on the realm of why you should visit Flagstaff. We issued 4 film permits, huge month for film. It was about Dark Skies, it was about 66, it was about Buffalo Park. We even had a Spanish soccer player here. And then we assisted on 4 films. And Keanu Reeves flew into the Flagstaff airport. Orville told me, Wiseman over there, got a shot with him. And we assisted on having him here and the people that were working on that shot that he was doing. And then again, email campaigns are going great. Always about City of 7 Wonders, want to know about our accommodations, which are amazing here. And they want to know, do you have live music? Sweepstakes are going strong. We always invite people up here to try to win a trip, and those are going very strong. Our social media is, of course, going strong. Train Day was a big deal. Isabel is doing a before and after series, and this thing is blazing. People love to know the history of Flagstaff, so look out for those. They're really resonating. And then we also touched on Instagram with high altitude training. This is the time to do it. And then, of course, Americana Motor Hotel has been getting mad acclaims. When you talk about sales, we also sell the destination. We have a travel trade manager, and we have a meetings, events, and conference manager. They went to International Powwow. That's what it's called, IPW. And they went to LA this year, and as you can see pictures, we were all about Route 66. We had this Route 66 neon made for our booth, and I will tell you, people were flocking to it to take pictures. And then they had 80 scheduled appointments with tour operators from around the world to talk about why they need to add Flagstaff to their itinerary. I remember the first IPW I went to, and we had 40 appointments, and now we have 80. I can tell you Discover Flagstaff's making a difference. We hosted fam tours with a German representative. 2 German representatives, which means that we take them around, we give them a reason to write about us, and then we reap the reward later. I'm going to scan through this real quickly if you don't mind. Meetings, events, they sent out 2 leads. This would, if they come through, would be 664 room nights, and it would be $198,000 impact. Why do I share that with you? Because it's important. The hotels can't do it just on their own, and they expect that we will sell their meeting space with them and alongside of them, and we're doing that. Visitor services, of course, we were up in walk-ins, we were up in retail sales, and then I wanted to thank Councilmember McCarthy for joining the team out there for Train Day. Train Day is such a fun day, and I guarantee you, Councilmember McCarthy probably thought it was like, it was a lot of people, but they do a little gun reenactment and all of that, like a train reenactment, and then he always have somebody cut the cake. We had over 1,000 walk-ins that day because of that event. So again, it's a really fun tradition. We are getting great Google reviews on our visitor center staff, and again, some of the creative that we had all was about fire awareness, about keeping up with it. When we go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, please know that our team is on top of that and they are sending out that information. We are all about the restaurants, and here you can see Jamie Thousand. We talked about his barbecue and some of the burger joints in Flagstaff, another reason to stop. All about festivals and everything. We're already promoting 100th anniversary of Route 66. More to come on that. I can't wait to share with you that program. And we also are even getting the PD involved. They asked us to wrap a vehicle, and so we're going to be doing that with Route 66 Centennial very soon. Whew, that's a lot. Any questions?
We do have a couple of questions. First, we have Councilmember Harris.
As usual, Heidi, you are amazing. Your team is doing so much. The flowers downtown are just beautiful. And when I do go downtown, I pay particular attention to those. And they're really nice, and it's great to be able to sit outside and look at that because I love flowers anyway. I'm just wondering if there's any way that we can look at doing something similar, not as much as we do downtown, but eventually we'll get there, on our 4th Street corridor, north of 66, so that side of 66. I know that, a lot of people go downtown and they, visit the shops and all of that, but wouldn't it be nice if our residents and our community members could have that beauty as they walk up and down 4th Street, getting on the bus, going to some of the local coffee shops over there and, that kind of stuff. So is there any way that we can even start to look at that or think about that?
Mayor, Councilmember Harris, it has been looked at. We actually looked at trying to do hanging flowers on the corridor of 4th Street, but we found out the poles cannot handle the weight. Let me go back and look at that program. This is a program that we talked about way before Jana Weldon came aboard, but Jana makes things happen. So let me see what we can do about talking about even doing planters and things that can actually be stationary, and we'll get back with you on that. And just so, because I say I'm going to get back to you and I don't want you to think I won't, we are already in production on the Green Book changes that you and Councilmember House had suggested to us. And so I will be looking at those changes from Creative. Candace is working on those right now. And when I see those changes, before we reproduce any of that or we go to print, we're going to definitely set a meeting with you and talk about those. But I will definitely be showing you Green Book changes, and I will get back to this council on the flowers on 4th Street.
Yeah, because I know that the hanging baskets, you have a certain type of posts or lamp posts that you have to, have. But the planters could really be, nice. So anyway.
Definitely.
But,
we placed the 2 planters where you see the sign at the very beginning. We had to put them tall so that people wouldn't, sit on them and things like that. So we have the 2 planters, but we can always add something along the street. We talked about it, and I'll ask if we can relook at it.
Yeah, I'd appreciate at least us looking at it and then coming back and saying yay, no, what would it, what would it take and all of that kind of stuff. Because that is it's going to be our next up and coming business kind of area, I think. And so it's going to attract a lot more traffic as the businesses start to grow over in that area. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Heidi. Great update as always. I am glad that you anticipated my question on the Green Book Tour update, so I'll look forward to hearing more on that. I was curious with the BIPOC program funding that you mentioned with the libraries. I'm wondering if there are programs that are included in the Summer Reading Challenge that are utilizing those funds as well. And I ask that because I am just remembering back to when I was a kid and library reading challenges, especially the summer challenges when you were out of school and all of that, being so important to me as a young Black girl looking for positive representation, and the library being one of the few places that I had access to that readily. So I'm hoping that some of that has been built into that program. Are you aware of any?
I definitely am not aware of it. I can tell you when I go back to look at the actual programs, it doesn't look like that is part of it, but I will get back with you on that. I'll probably do it through email if you don't mind to the entire council. I will get with Linda Tilson and we'll send you something out tomorrow. I'm also happy if you would like to respond back with any suggestions as well if you don't feel the information Linda gives you back is going to do the trick. We're happy to make sure that grant funding goes to the right use.
Great, thanks so much.
You're welcome. I'll send that out tonight.
Anyone else? All right, Heidi, I don't see any other questions. Thank you
Mayor.
so
Sorry
much.
that I wasn't in person tonight. I will see you next time.
All right, thank you.
That concludes my report, other than quickly noting that I did receive, on the topic of parking, I did receive a parking warning this last week. Apparently, I was parking unlawfully in the city councilor's parking spaces. So just wanted to share that.
Stay out.
I am staying out of your spaces. That does it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, so we are moving down to item number 11, 2024-25 implementation plan for the 10-year housing plan. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Tough acts to follow today. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. You may remember me from a couple of different micro presentations in the past. I'm Adriana Fisher, your Housing Program Manager for the Housing Section. The purpose of today's presentation is to inform you of the 2024-2025 implementation plan for the 10-year housing plan and the strategies that staff have selected for the upcoming fiscal year. In addition to a copy of this presentation, you should have received a full implementation plan in your agenda packet. And I'm managing two screens here, so bear with me. Before we get started today, I'd like to give you a sneak peek of what we'll go over. You'll receive a brief refresher on the 10-year housing plan. We'll go over the reporting and implementation schedule so you know where we're at and what's next. We will review what factors played a role in influencing strategy selection for the 24-25 fiscal year. We will review the 24-25 implementation plan and strategies, and we'll have some time for questions and comments at the end of the presentation, but feel free to stop me along the way. And let's go to where it all started. Let's start with a quick summary of how I got to be here today. Some of you may remember that in October of 2020, you received a citizen's petition. The petition requested that City Council declare a housing crisis in the City of Flagstaff through emergency resolution, so housing could be prioritized and become the focus in investment, action, and support by the city. At the beginning of December 2020, City Council declared a housing emergency and requested staff put together a comprehensive, community-facing document to guide staff's work. Staff, along with countless volunteers and significant public participation, created a 68-page document between then and the beginning of 2022. By January of 2022, the Housing Commission reviewed and recommended the document to you, Council, for approval. And in February of 2022, you approved and adopted the document. Thank you. You may be very familiar with this image by now, as it is the cover page for the 10-year housing plan, and this will kickstart our brief overview of the 10-year housing plan. The vision of the plan is to create a vibrant and more livable community through increased housing options for residents at all income levels and family sizes. I'm a visual person, so I figured this graphic would help us all see the framework of the plan. We have a single overarching goal supported by two elements, Element 1 and Element 2. The 13 policy initiatives support the elements and the overarching goal through 58 comprehensive strategies and are a foundational framework for establishing housing programs, prioritizing staff work, and allocating necessary funding for implementation. I also want to note that the implementation of the policy initiatives and strategies outlined in the plan will be accomplished by the City of Flagstaff through the budget process, collaboration with city staff, and private, public, and nonprofit partnerships. But I'm not leaving you hanging without reminding you that the overarching goal is to reduce the current affordable housing need in our community by half over the next 10 years. We will do this by impacting at least 6,000 low to moderate income residents by creating units and providing housing subsidies. We will also increase the overall supply of all housing types by creating or preserving 7,976 housing units by 2031, with at least 10% being affordable. Before we delve into the contents of the implementation plan, I want to distinguish the difference between the two annual documents you'll see each year corresponding to the 10-year housing plan. Implementation plans, which is what we're reviewing today, are action documents that outline which strategies will be undertaken in upcoming fiscal years. Annual reports are essentially progress reports on the work staff has undertaken in a corresponding implementation plan. As we continue to follow the reporting and implementation schedule, on our screen, you'll see that in May, staff presented the 24-25 implementation plan to the Housing Commission. Today, we're presenting to you the same document. You are here. In August, we will return to the Housing Commission to present the unique 18-month report corresponding to the 18-month implementation plan currently in progress. It's important to note that the 18-month implementation plan is unique, as it covers a period from January 2023 through this month. instead of your typical 12-month period that you'll see in future fiscal years. Then, in September, we'll come back to you, Council, to showcase our achievements and demonstrate our progress by presenting the 18-month report. I want to remind you that there are 58 strategies outlined in the 10-year housing plan. And if you read them, they are complex and thoughtful and full of hope for a future, which can make them even more overwhelming. No pressure, right? I realize that if I present for 15 minutes at a time, my mouth gets really dry, so. To make the strategy implementation more attainable, staff have been using the guide on your screen to determine which strategies to undertake each fiscal year. Every year, we assess which strategies will need to be implemented. We then take a look at what makes sense to tackle based on what's happening in our world. Can we now complete a strategy that was dependent on another strategy being completed? Is there funding required over staff time? And is there a funding source that we can tap into in the near future to complete the strategy? Do the collaborating divisions and sections identified, who are the experts for this strategy, have capacity to undertake a new project? We also want to make sure that we have strategies that take various lengths of time to complete, so multiple projects can move at the same time. Now, I present to you the 2024-2025 implementation plan. This is a second implementation plan we've created, and it covers strategies that will be undertaken in fiscal year 24-25. It has a similar format as the 18-month implementation plan, but again, it only covers 12 months. We did add some ongoing strategies to this one, as well as policy initiatives, so we don't lose sight of what those are. And because percentages can be subjective, we switched statuses to in progress, represented by the hourglass graphic, and not started, represented by the stop sign shaped graphic. Upcoming annual reports will include their own adorable little graphic to represent a completed status. And with that, before we delve into the strategies, I want to thank all the collaborators I've contacted thus far in various city departments and sections. If it wasn't for their expertise, my job would be much more difficult, even though many of the strategies are conceptual and flexible in their approach. Now, let's get into the strategy selected for the upcoming fiscal year, which include a few strategies that were carried over from previous years, but for the most part, the majority of the strategies you'll see today are brand new. I also want to note that simply because these are the only strategies outlined in the implementation plan, it doesn't mean that we won't undertake new ones if we see an opportunity to do so. In the following slides, you'll see a graphic next to the strategy representing the strategy status, wow, lots of S's, as of today. As a reminder, the hourglass graphic is used for strategies in progress, with a red stop sign shaped graphic used for the few strategies not yet started. Here, and on the following slide, we will address regional plan strategies. Create 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and preserve 1.2. These strategies are in progress and will be completed through the upcoming regional plan update, which Sarah Dector and her team are working so diligently on right now. Create 2.1 requires that regional plan policies support increased density for affordable housing. Create 2.2 focuses on identifying suburban areas that will support greater density and intensity of development. Preserve 1.2 aims to remove barriers to adaptive reuse for affordable housing creation. Lastly, for the regional plan updates is Create 2.3, which requires the revision of the community character chapter in the regional plan to include cost-saving methods that reduce conflicts between affordable housing, historic preservation, and urban design. Again, this one is in progress through the regional plan update and should be completed sometime next year.
I have a quick question about those. Can you go back 2 slides?
Mm-hmm.
So the regional plan related strategies, you're going to identify areas to support greater density and support increased density. What is that? Will there be a whole new section added to the regional plan, or just a sentence saying that we want increased density in order to facilitate affordable housing? Will it be identified on the map?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Duggett and council members. That's a great question. So far, it's coming in an upcoming chapter as far as my understanding goes. These, looks like there's someone.
Go ahead, finish what you're saying.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. We have been working closely with Sarah Dector and her team to incorporate our strategies into what's happening with the regional plan, understanding that the 10-year housing plan, it's a guiding document, but the regional plan is much bigger, and we are working together to incorporate those strategies within the chapters. I know one's, for example, going away, but I don't think that has anything to do with the 10-year housing plan. Thank you for being here.
Sure. I'll try to help out with the question. Dan Folk, Community Development Director. So typically your regional plan, again, are goals and policies, but it's not the implementation document. And so the types of changes we might see in the regional plan would be related to like area types. Our current regional plan has area types and place types. And within those area types, we have a range of densities. And so we don't have a future land use map, but it's this area type map. And again, we may change the recommended density ranges within some of those area types. And then the way you implement it is through your zoning code. And so that may lead to an amendment in the zoning code, which allows higher densities in specific districts. We could also allow higher densities for specific housing types. Again, we have a lot of incentives in our zoning code for affordable housing to get extra density. And so really, again, the regional plan is that base. It's creating the base for your implementation document, which in this case is our zoning code. Is that helpful?
And it looks like Councilmember Harris has a question.
I didn't know if you were done, if you've got more after this, because I can wait until after you're done.
I do have a lot.
Okay, that's fine. That's what I should have said that, Mayor. I'm sorry. That I can wait till after she's done. I'm sorry.
I presented this to my husband. He's like, just take sips of water in between these. So bear with me. Let's see. All right. With that, these strategies are all about the money and what money, strategy, and collaboration can do, of course. Create 3.2 requires a fund creation for the acquisition of land and/or units for affordable housing. Connect 1.2 allowed us to create and hire a housing navigator position to help landlords and housing challenged populations in securing and maintaining housing. Both strategies have been started, as you can see, but speaking about the money, you, Council, adopted the fiscal year 24-25 budget at last week's council meeting. Your approval made it to where $500,000 were approved to get Create 3.2 started. but more work will need to be done to complete the strategy itself. I'm happy to inform you that through that approval and after a couple of years of one-time funding, Connect 1.2 will also be completed as of July 1 because you approved the ongoing funding of our Housing Navigator position. Moving on to Preserve 2.2 and Protect 2.4. Preserve 2.2 has not yet been started. The strategy requires the acquisition and rehabilitation of already built properties for affordable housing as we have funds available. Protect 2.4 is no small task. The strategy requires a public outreach campaign to educate the community and gather more support for affordable housing while combating community opposition. Extensive outreach has been conducted since 2022, and staff continues to seize opportunities as they emerge. As mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, this year, housing staff added ongoing strategies to the implementation plan. We have a few slides to cover the selected ongoing strategies, but I do want to inform you of why these strategies are ongoing. The primary reason is because they don't necessarily have a start or an end date. They're not a project that can simply be completed in X amount of months. They will take significant and consistent effort for the duration of the plan. Many identified ongoing strategies on the 10-year housing plan are in progress through the work we do, but this year, more of our focus will be directed to the ongoing strategies in the implementation plan and in this presentation. Create 1.1 ensures that modifications to the zoning code improve and maintain the effectiveness of the density incentives for affordable housing. Create 1.8 requires incentives for the development of ownership units through the exploration of the community land trust model and public-private partnerships. Create 3.3 allows staff to explore ongoing resource opportunities to assist households in all areas of the housing continuum, from those experiencing homelessness to first-time home buyers. Here are a couple more ongoing strategies. Create 5.7 and Connect 1.3. Both strategies are in progress. Create 5.7 entails constructing, promoting, and encouraging developers to utilize net zero and net zero ready affordable housing options. Connect 1.3 involves the city's effort in continuing to support and develop coordinated entry to further provide linkages to healthcare, behavioral health, and housing.
I have another quick question.
Sure.
If you could go back one slide. Net zero, is that referring to energy, or is this another term?
I'm gonna utilize my resources here.
Mayor, members of council, Sarah Dar, Housing Director. It is related to our sustainability initiatives.
So as you've probably already noticed, many of these strategies are dedicated to amplifying equity. While we strive to include equity in all housing aspects, these strategies give us clear direction as where to focus our efforts. Connect 2.1 in particular, which is in progress, focuses on incorporating equity into housing policies and strategies. Connect 2.2, which is also in progress, pushes us to encourage other organizations in the community to integrate equity into their programs and policies. Protect 1.2, also in progress, focuses on affordable housing preservation, creation, and protection through local and legislative changes. Create 1.7 and Connect 3.1 haven't been started in a meaningful way yet, which is why you see our stop sign shaped graphic friend next to them. I'm enthusiastic about prioritizing Create 1.7, which will enable us to explore methods to encourage employers to provide employer-assisted housing programs to improve employee and resident retention. We previously discussed the importance of connecting healthcare to housing in our ongoing strategy. Connect 3.1 serves as additional motivation to raise awareness about housing security as a social determinant of health. And you have made it through the end of our ongoing strategies. Thank you for your time. Is there any questions that I can answer?
Councilmember Harris?
Thank you for the presentation. If you could go back to your equity slide, think about equity in terms of removing the barriers. So if you take the fence down, no one needs anything. Okay, so just a thought. But my question or my comment is more related to focusing on people who are getting ready to go down that hole. So we have to stop it, as I heard somewhere, I can't remember now. But imagine that you've got like a waterfall, and there are people or things in the waterfall, and they keep falling off, and you got to keep taking them out of the puddle or out of the pond. How do we stop them from falling in the first place so that we don't have to spend so much energy fixing it? And so I saw some strategies in there that could lead to that. And then I'm just going to comment that everyone who is potentially going to be homeless is not a victim of domestic violence, nor are they a mental health issue. They're working hard every day trying to make it, and they're hanging on by a thread. So how do we help them to feel a little bit more secure so that we don't have to spend so much money trying to fix the problem? So I would like for us to think a little bit more about how that might happen. And of course, I don't have the answer. I'm just, I'm asking if we've thought about that, and maybe if we could look at those strategies that maybe address that and see if we can throw a little bit more money in that direction. So maybe we can save some money. I don't know, but just a thought. So if you have a comment or anybody else has a comment, I would like to hear it. Thank you.
Would staff like to address some of the eviction prevention programs that exist?
And Mayor, I should have clarified, sometimes we don't know. I guess my question should have been, how can we identify folks before they get to that stage? How do we know, like if I'm living in an apartment, I'm working every day, I'm doing it's paycheck to paycheck, okay, and I know that I'm getting ready to fall, but people out there look at me and they don't know that I'm getting ready to fall. So how do we get information out to people who may be in that situation so that we can catch them before they fall and before it gets to be a crisis? Like I used to tell my students all the time, come see me before, because that's when I can really help you. It's harder for me to help after you've kind of fallen. So I'm sorry, Mayor, I should have been more clear in my question or comment.
Thank you for the question and comment. Mayor, Councilmember Harris, those are some great points. I wish I could tell you how we're going to implement these right now, but this is the implementation plan at this point. So we're bringing to you the information. A lot of these ongoing strategies are going to require a lot of collaboration with our nonprofit partners, but I've watched enough council meetings to have some of the comments that you have indicated just ring in my ear when it comes to equity. So thank you for those comments and for allowing us to think outside the box. We will definitely keep that in mind as we implement these.
I have a lot of think out of the box ideas, but thank you.
Councilmember Matthews and then Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. So this plan was approved about 2.5 years ago, almost, right? And the elements of the plan are to impact 6,000 low to moderate income residents through unit creation or subsidies, as well as create or preserve 7,976 housing units by 2031. So what I'm concerned about, I didn't see any completion icons. You haven't created that yet because we don't have any yet, right? So I see a lot of words. I was taking notes: explore, develop, identify, implement an outreach, create a fund, explore, create housing navigator, evaluate, pursue, raise awareness. Those, for me, those are busy words. Those are, you know, really spending a lot of time planning. But we're 2 years in, we've got 8 years left. And I think our housing crisis is growing. We're going in the rears. So when can we expect action items that actually help to create units and help to create all kinds of different units for different income levels? I did recognize that in the strategy was the employer assistance fund, which I had asked for a few weeks ago, that's not started yet. And I want to make sure, I wanted to clarify that I didn't want to recreate the wheel. What's the acronym for that fund that we use for ROARS?
Incentive Policy for Affordable Housing.
So what
IPAH.
I think it'd be pretty quick to just write in to that accessibility for that incentive fund to also include employers wanting to build employee housing. I know it's not as simple as that, but we don't have to recreate or to create something new. I just want it added to that fund that we have to give incentives for employers to not, you know, to I think the incentive plan calls for waiving or refunding fees and stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but I'm just worried. We get a lot of community comments about our lack of action. And I just feel like in this strategy, it's really great. There's a lot of things. 58 strategies is a lot. I feel like we could get lost in the weeds in that. Just trying to figure out how we're going to implement and explore and develop and strategize on 58. Where if we could just focus on, you know, a handful and say this year, not only are we going to continue to explore options, but what are we going to do to actually, you know, have some, I know Sarah's starting to move, but actually see some movement, because we're just going backwards.
Thank you for the comment, Mayor, Councilmember Matthews. I just want to make a note that this specific document, the implementation plan, only highlights what we'll be working on next fiscal year. In September, we will be back to you to let you know what we've done. Right. While a lot of the words that we used in a lot of the strategies, again, are not concrete, we did that for a reason, because we understand that market changes. We need to implement the strategies in a way that fit the market that we live in. But thank you for the comment, and we will keep that in mind. Sarah Dar, would you like to add anything?
Mayor and Council, you did a great job answering that. I think the other thing I'd like to point out, besides this being the plan, not the what we've accomplished document. This is looking forward. We do have accomplishments. We quite often share with you during our quarterly updates the piece of the city's webpage that is progress towards this goal. I hope you recognize these charts. We do update that. It does show incremental progress towards those. We will gain momentum as many of these strategies are implemented. Part of our challenge, and maybe not even a challenge, but part of this process is going through the groundwork. The last cap is leading us in that direction, especially when it comes to things like incentives. The regional plan pieces have been a lift. Not so much for us, but we are working with Sarah Dector and her team to make sure the things identified in the 10-year plan by our community members are incorporated into that. So these first few years are a lot of groundwork laying, a lot of, I'll just leave it at groundwork laying because all the other words left my head. Our other piece is that when the plan was written, there are a lot of words in there like evaluate, et cetera. We were finding folks uncomfortable with saying, we're going to do this, because there isn't money identified, because we didn't have a bond at that point in time, and we've been subject to one-time general fund appropriations over time for programs. And so there was a lack of comfort in bringing forward things, one, that are not within our control, but rather within the control of someone else within the organization. So Adriana, and before her, Leah Bloom, sits down with the other divisions and sections in the city to say, all right, what do you think we can tackle this year, that type of thing. So yes, no, I agree that there are a lot of words that explore, et cetera, and part of that is the timing that the plan was written and the lack of resources that had been identified at that point in time to address a lot of these. So as we do get, I mean, the bond was one of the strategies that was accomplished a year and a half ago, et cetera. So you'll see those in the accomplishments report.
So Sarah, two things. Would you, just for the benefit of the audience, clarify where that page is on the city website, because it is very informative? Could you just repeat it so they could have it if they're listening?
I will, and it's not an awesome address, a web address, but if you go to the city's website and the second tab over, it says government residents. If you rest your mouse on residents, affordable housing is one of the first things that comes up, and then click on the 10-year plan. And that will take you to the graphic. Our most recent update was March 31st, so we'll be updating again at the end of June. And so those numbers within July, August will be updated and be coming to you as part of the accomplishments. Is it the accomplishments report? Am I using the right word?
Annual report.
The annual report, thank you. I'm like, that sounds wrong. The annual report based on what we've been able to do.
And my other comment, and thank you, Adriana, for all your hard work. It was a great presentation, is that I want to encourage you, now that we just approved this budget starting July 1st, I think you know by just the comments that this particular council's made that we clearly recognize we have two crises. And so I want to encourage you, starting in January when we start this process over again, that I'm looking forward to the Housing Department coming with some very concrete strategies that may need funding to continue moving this 10-year housing plan forward and addressing our housing crisis, which affects everyone in this city. We're going to need XYZ in this amount of funds, because I can't speak for all of them about the support of the financial ask, but in personnel, so you can get it done. And if you have a clear and concise proposal, I will champion that cause for the Housing Department, because I know you can't move it forward without sufficient funding. And I want to look forward to having that in our budget discussions, because, as council, we have a lot of things that come to us, but roads, water, infrastructure, housing are some of the basic things that we need to do first and to prioritize before we look at other things that are just more fun or glamorous. So I do encourage you to please ask big, and then we'll come down from there, right? Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. And thank you for your support through this budget cycle as well. Adriana started with leading by 2 things that are underway, but as of July 1 will be marked complete. And that was because of you budgeting money, the budget team and city manager's team championing those ideas forward and you approving them. Those are the steps we're making, and they're not super fast. One thing I keep reminding staff, not just Adriana, but others, is that it's a 10-year plan, and that 2 years in is awesome, and we're making progress, but we have 7.5 years to continue the work on it. And I know you get comments because we get comments. We fully understand the pressure from multiple levels, and we really appreciate your support.
Councilmember House and then Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Adriana, for the presentation and for taking on these questions. I wanted to, before diving into some of the questions that I had, dive back into Councilmember Harris's comments on, those preventative measures that we can take. And I'm wondering if there are opportunities to look at some of the community partner programs that the Housing Division works with, or that private landlords are working with, and that are shared out through the housing program, to ensure that there are avenues for some of that predictability, not just the prevention measures. Coming from a background in housing, I know that so many of those programs are established that they're not offering services until you fall in. So even if I had a resident, for example, that came to me saying, I know I'm going to fall behind on my rent, I want to use this program, can you provide me with documentation? A lot of them would require that you receive a 5-day eviction notice before they would be willing to provide you with funding. So looking at those programs kind of systematically and seeing how can we shift that so that it doesn't require you to be in that precarious position that if they can't get you the money in time, they've now put you in a position where you had to have that notice telling you you're going to be evicted, if that makes sense. So looking at those sorts of things and making sure that the system is itself working in a way that's allowing that prevention, rather than forcing them to kind of play into that system. I don't know if you want to say anything on that thought before going into some questions then.
Just thank you, Councilmember Harris. Where am I? House. Feels like 8 p.m.
So a couple of questions that I had come up during your presentation. Can you or someone from the team remind me of the policy that prevents us from creating additional public housing?
Sarah Dar.
That's me.
Mayor, Councilmember House, it's called the Faircloth Act. I want to say 1997, but it was established by council that as of this magical date, which I'm not able to pull out of my brain at the moment, but it is a specific date, that no additional public housing units could be created in this country. As public housing is a difficult model, it's difficult to fund, et cetera. And so I've even asked the question, because the first time I heard it, I thought, that is absurd. And I started asking the questions, well, other entities that are not able to maintain their number, so is there like a pot we can apply for and we could bring some that are lost in other communities? Ours, the answer is no. In fact, we actually have the second to last public housing development in the nation in this community. And we had to petition. It might end up being the last based on its placed in service date, but we had to petition because it was started before Faircloth was passed, but completed after the date. And so that's it. We have 265 units. Now what we can do is pursue other models. And so that's what we're doing. HUD has long acknowledged that they have historically underfunded the capital needs of public housing quite drastically, and that there are tens of billions of dollars of unaddressed needs throughout public housing in the nation, which is why they're providing the opportunities through RAD or through repositioning your public housing portfolio. In that repositioning of that portfolio, it shifts the funding sources, capital and operating, into one funding source. There's no additional money. But also puts the regulations under a more sustainable platform, similar to the Section 8 program, but not voucher-based, just the rules and regulations within it. So it is called the Fair Cloth Act. I know there have been periodically rumblings within Congress to revisit that. HUD has not typically provided development funding through mechanisms that are not the LIHTC, the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, or the home partnerships. We are not big enough to access home money directly. We have to apply via the state and compete with all of the rest of the rural areas, more metropolitan for federal, rural for Arizona, compete with the rest of the state, everything outside of Pima and Maricopa for those dollars. We have found that typically our nonprofit partners are more successful in competing for those because we don't build housing. We would apply for the grant, receive the grant, do a solicitation to find somebody to create the housing. So in turn, and then we would have administrative costs. So in turn, what we've done is support our partners in their applications so that we're not acting as a middleman within that transaction. So Fair Cloth, if you want to Google, it's really fun.
Thank you. Trying to think which of these I want to go to next. So what are we doing, or what can we do to increase local access to housing choice vouchers and rates that actually meet our market? I know we've had conversations about that in the past, about the challenge of how those are allocated, how the HTVs are allocated to begin with, but then also the determination of market rates, and knowing that we even have an exception for the rates because of our location, but they're still not quite matching up. So what can we do, maybe not necessarily from the housing division, but from even council perspective, to try and push for more access to those things?
Mayor, Councilmember House, may I clarify if you're asking for access to additional vouchers or making sure fair market rents are more reflective of our community, or both?
Both.
Both. Okay. All right. I'm like, I thought it was this, then I thought it was this. Okay. One, on the voucher front, Congress periodically releases new vouchers. The ones that have been coming out the most often are VASH for our veterans. Our VA partner, VA staff are maxed, and we have to have the VA partnership agree for us to apply for additional VASH vouchers. We are having a hard time leasing up the number of VASH vouchers that we have. We're quite successful with it, but it's tough because they were targeted at homeless vets, and a lot of the easy-to-house homeless vets were housed right off the bat, and now it's the households that need more assistance. Our VA partners are tasked with case managing those individuals, and the VA has multiple positions that they are unable to fill, not because of not being able to find, although I'm sure they also have the same hiring challenges everyone else does, but they also encounter the positions are frozen. They're not allowed to hire those. Their staff are tapped. They're fully obligated, and so it would take a significant allocation of new vouchers for them to support us applying for those. And typically a significant allocation of vouchers of 60 or more, a community our size is not eligible for. And we quite often have VASH vouchers available for those folks who would qualify for them. So I talk about that because VASH comes out most often. Then we did receive an allocation of new Section 8 vouchers within the last year. We went from we got nine new general purpose vouchers. I'm actually working on a project right now that has the potential to bring additional general purpose vouchers to our community, and you'll be hearing about that hopefully in August. We're working on those fronts. I think the continuing to encourage Congress to fund vouchers. Of course, the challenge with that is vouchers are great when people have a place to live. And so it's that supply-demand piece again, which is where that creation of additional multifamily housing in our community is so absolutely vital. On the fair market rents front, I think our callus might be thick enough on our heads from beating on that wall. HUD does not seem prone to change their methodology on how fair market rents are established. We had the ability to go to a small area fair market rents by zip code. The price difference between those was under $25, and that would mean we would try to help people understand, if you lease in 01, your rent is this, but if you can spend up to this, but across town it's $25 difference. And it was under that 25 mark would create some fairly extreme confusion in a community our size we have 3 main zip codes. So we are keeping an eye on fair market rent. They changed how they calculated during the pandemic, and we really liked it. And then they went back to the old ways. We do know, I've been speaking with the field office director. We have a new field office director in Phoenix. He accepted the job last week. I've met with him twice already to make sure he is aware of the challenges we face in our community, specifically with fair market rent as well. Remember, the other challenge with fair market rent is that it's based on American Community Survey data, which is always 2 years old. And so I think the best we could do is perhaps improve it, ask them to use a source that is only 12 months old, given how fast things change here. But we've even had the statisticians from HUD come out and sit down here in the community with us. And we've explained, and we don't make a lot of headway. I think it does remain in the DC packet. We're happy to leave that there so that council can speak to that on their trips to DC and just keep in the forefront of people's minds that a tool that is designed to serve housing authorities of all sizes across the nation, from New York and LA all the way down to us little guys, the tools are not always fair when you're looking to design for someone with tens of thousands of units and someone with 265.
Thanks for that. Last question, and then I have a comment after your answer. But I'm wondering if the plans to increase affordable development include the recent legislation creating more opportunities for ADUs and that sort of development.
Yes. I could give you more if you want.
Nope, that's good enough. I'm glad to hear that that's part of the consideration. And then just the last comment from me is just tacking on a bit to what Councilmember Matthews said in terms of our support for the work that you all are doing. I think it's really important to constantly give that reminder and that encouragement that this is a council that very much wants to say yes to making these goals happen and achieving the goals of this plan. So just encouraging you to keep pushing the envelope and keep bringing those new and innovative ideas, even the things that maybe have been no's before, because if there's a way to make it happen, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think we want to be the ones to make it happen. So please keep doing what you're doing and bringing these things to us and presenting these new ideas, and let's try and find a way to make it happen together. So thank you.
Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Mine's more of a comment. I'm glad that we are talking about employee or employer incentives. And I don't know if you've been talking with the business community, but they are starting to get creative and starting to really talk about how they want to address this for retaining employees. And I would just hope that as we get going with it, we can help be a connector between the different businesses, what's working, what's not. And there's some great ideas out there that's floating around, and I love talking to the business community on it, and I hope that you all can engage with them as well. Thank you.
Council, anyone else? I will just echo our support of everything that your staff is doing and anything that we can do to help. This is just a top priority. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, council members.
All right, next up, we have item number 12, proposed amendment to Observatory Mesa right-of-way easement.
Okay, good evening. I'm Robert Wallace. I'm the Open Space Supervisor for the City staff, or for the city, and I'm joined tonight by the Deputy City Attorney, Kevin Finsel. We are here to inform you about a request to amend a right-of-way easement for the construction of an access road from Hidden Hollow through the Observatory Mesa Natural Area to some private properties on the eastern side of the natural area. So this summary describes the background status of that right-of-way leading from the Hidden Hollow Road. It talks a little bit about the restrictions on the city's preserved natural area. The city's role in the proposed amendment to the right-of-way easement, the concept plan for the proposed amendment to the right-of-way easement. The Open Space Commission did formulate a recommendation for City Council's consideration and some next steps. So for this evening, our goal is to inform you on this topic and then return to ask for direction at a future council meeting. So here you can see the general location of Observatory Mesa, just to the west of Thorpe Park. And we're focusing on the northern section here this evening, section 6. On the east side of this section, there were 7 privately owned parcels with an easement that crosses the Observatory Mesa Natural Area to currently access these parcels. So the right-of-way is within boundaries of City of Flagstaff, and it is within the Observatory Mesa Natural Area, which is protected in 2016. And as I mentioned before, this item is for reviewing an amendment proposed to the current right-of-way easement at the request of the private property owners. The purpose would be to modify the existing right-of-way easement to allow for the construction of a 20-foot wide access road to provide better access to their private property so their property could be developed. I'll just provide you with a little bit of history on the right-of-way. In 1986, the right-of-way was purchased from the Arizona State Land Department for the development of a public roadway. It was not developed into a public roadway, but it remains a primitive dirt road approximately 10 to 15 feet wide, and it provides legal access to these series of properties. The original easement is still valid and provides access in perpetuity through the natural area. And I've got just a couple of pictures. You can see the two-track nature of this road. In some places, the two-track does not align in entirety with the current valid easement. It runs in a location that avoids some of the topography. On some portions of the two-track were not, so they weren't built within the right-of-way easement. This proposed amendment would help correct some of that. To develop the private properties, the road must meet City of Fire access road design criteria, which requires modifications to the road as far as width, slope, turning radius, etc. According to the information shared with the city by the engineer consulting with the private property owners, the construction of the road within the boundaries of the existing right-of-way would be difficult due to topography constraints.
Robert, is that your dog?
No, it's not. I do have a dog, though. He's a border collie. Here you can see a little bit of terrain along the side of the road there, and then one of the steep grades that the current two-track ascends to the private properties that would have to be realigned to allow for a more gentle grade. City staff have met with private property owners on multiple occasions and provided recommended changes to their construction plans to help reduce the impact to the natural area. And those changes are reflected in the concept that we're sharing with you tonight. There's a couple of other photographs here. This is approaching the private property boundary, and then there is one section that parallels the natural area and the private property within the natural area, and the property owners are amenable to moving that section onto the private property. So just talk a little bit about changes in land use. The purpose of the property that the right-of-way easement passes through changed when the City of Flagstaff voters approved a bond fund to match a $6 million grant that was awarded from the Arizona State Parks. The grant agreement gave a deed of conservation to protect and preserve the Observatory Mesa Natural Area. Because the right-of-way was created prior to the deed of conservation, the Arizona State Parks does recognize the rights of the holders of that right-of-way to access the private properties. The right-of-way also allows for the construction of a public roadway within the right-of-way easement boundaries. So they could currently build within the original easement boundaries. Though the city now owns the property, the deed of conservation does govern the use of the property, and it restricts the impacts to the natural area outside of the right-of-way easement boundaries. So why are we here today, and what is the city's role in this? Arizona State Parks and Trails has asked the City of Flagstaff to review the request and determine its general decision on the request to amend this right-of-way. And then following this, the proposal for amending the right-of-way and the construction plans would need to be reviewed and approved by the Arizona State Parks and also the State Historic Preservation Office before it would come back to the city for its final approval process. I'll just share a little bit of language from the conservation easement along the parameters for managing the natural area. Given the acquisition process, the Arizona State Parks holds this deed of conservation over the entirety of the natural area. This deed dictates the types of improvement projects that are allowed within the natural area. This is a legal mechanism to help protect the natural area and baseline documentation conditions, or the condition of the property that it was in when it was purchased at the time of the acquisition. The conservation easement allows the improvement of 20 acres within the natural area. So that could include something like trailheads, parking areas, signs, and that sort of thing. It's stated in the conservation easement that the property will be used for the protection of wildlife habitat, the preservation of plant communities, environmental education, scientific research, the provision and controlled public access for passive recreation such as wildlife viewing and non-motorized use of trails. The conservation easement further outlines that facility development will consist of low-impact trails, interpretive facilities, and basic visitor amenities such as parking areas and restrooms. In the long term, an educational facility may be developed to support education and research activities on the Observatory Mesa Natural Area as well. And in accordance with the conservation easement, as I might have mentioned earlier, no more than 10% of the land can be developed, or 20 acres, whichever is less. So it would be 20 acres, could be altered overall. So some considerations include the legal description of the current right-of-way encompasses 3.52 acres. The proposed revised right-of-way alignment for the 20-foot access road would encompass 2.7 acres. However, the total estimated area to be impacted during the construction of the road would be 3.75 acres. The additional 1.05 acres that would be impacted by construction could be rehabilitated by private property owners as a condition of the amended right-of-way easement. For example, that would include like slope cuts and fill. One benefit of amending the right-of-way would be that some of the current right-of-way would be placed on private property, reducing the overall acreage within the natural area. Another consideration is that approximately 48 acres are located east of the current right-of-way, so a well-traveled road could have impacts to wildlife use on that particular portion of that acreage. And finally, staff are working with the community to develop a trail plan for the natural area, and a well-traveled road could have impacts on recreation. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Finsel to share some insight on the proposed concept before I return to share the Open Space Commission's recommendation.
Thank you, Robert. Mayor, do you mind if I sit down here so I can access my own computer? So, yeah, I'm going to help Robert out here a little bit. I've been involved with this issue for many years, really since we purchased the property in 2014. We've had the property owners in this area, and they've changed over time, come in and ask how they can develop their properties. And that's really what led us to this discussion. And the answer the city has given is, well, in order to build on your properties, you need to improve the roadway that accesses your properties so that we can get our emergency vehicles in there. Our fire department has identified a standard of a fire apparatus access road that needs to be built. That road is a 20-foot wide road. It needs to be able to hold a vehicle up to 80,000 pounds. It needs to have certain clearance. Very important here, it can't have any grade slope, forward slope of greater than 10%, and any side slope greater than 5%. And as Robert mentioned, and as you can see on some of these maps, if you can read them, there's some pretty significant topography in this area. And so really what it put the property owners in a position of trying to design a road that the city is saying they need in order to build their homes back there, but also do it within the easement. And that's really what I'm going to focus on. And if you don't mind, I think I'm going to share on my screen, and hopefully this works just so I can zoom in a little bit easier. Let's see if that comes up. All right, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on this, but just we'll start here. And this is from their concept plan that the property owners have submitted. We've worked with them, staff, for months now on trying to really narrow this plan down into the best package possible for council to consider. So this is where we're at. This page shows the green line as well as the blue line. The green line is the easement. That's the 30-foot wide right-of-way easement. You'll often hear it referred to as the BLE easement. I think Robert mentioned this was actually purchased back in 1986. It's been in place for a long period of time. So that's the green area. The blue is a rough outline of the current road, the Jeep Trail, the pictures Robert was showing you. So you can see just by looking at this, and we'll zoom in a little bit more, that the current road, that blue line, does not always match the green easement. I assume the reason for that is over the years, again, the topography has sort of determined where these property owners are driving in order to access their properties, and that is where the blue road has ended up. So this is where we're at today. We have a road out there that has impacted the mesa outside of the easement, and I assume it's been like that for many years. Getting down to the next page, and this is in your packet, you have this exhibit, and we'll just stop here for a second. This shows, for anyone watching online who looks at these maps, what this next map will show. So again, we see the green right-of-way easement. Then you see this area outlined in a thick black line on each side. That's the proposed revision, the amendment they're seeking. And then the area in red is the area, and Robert mentioned this, that will be impacted during construction, whether it's to manage slope, maybe some fill, maybe some grading. From the engineering's perspective, as they told it to us, it essentially needs to be impacted so they construct this and build a safe road. That area would then be rehabilitated, and I think Robert mentioned that before, that 1.05 acres that would be initially impacted but then rehabilitated so that the total area of that black line is actually less than the current easement today. So we'll look at that real quick. And I think what's important when you look at this page is the design, and again, when I talk about the design, the black line area, As you walk through this map, really tries to stay where the blue line is. It tries to design or identify an area where the future road will be designed, and they try to do it in a way that matches where the current road is now, which is a good thing because it's obviously less impact to the mesa. The only area where you really don't see that is in this area right here that I have on the screen. And again, if you can see how close these lines together, for people who don't know how to read these types of maps, the closer the line, the steeper the slope. So it's pretty much a small canyon, it looks like on this map. It's just a pretty steep area. So there's a reason why they took the road and went and stayed on top of the ridge and avoided that area there. Yeah, Vice Mayor?
Just another quick clarification. The more perpendicular the contour lines are to the road is also an indication of steepness. The more parallel they are to the road is less of a slope.
That's correct. Yeah, I had to ask my team, but yes, you're right. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So right here they're just staying on that ridge, but then they get back in line with the current road, that blue line, all the way up into the property line. Robert then mentioned that over here, and this I think is an important point to make, you see the green line here that runs along their properties. Because they'll be able to access at this point and working with the property owners and trying to, again, really limit the impact to the mesa, the plan would to extinguish that portion of the easement because it would no longer be needed. You see over here a turnaround point. It's still identified that this turnaround point, this hammerhead turnaround, part of it would be on city property. We've talked with the property owners. That will likely be revised to be all on private property. Again, the private property owners are really trying to do their best to limit the impact to the mesa. So that in the next revision should be on private property as well. So that's, and I didn't zoom in a ton here on the red, but I'll focus on it now. You can see here where the red is identified. This, for example, down here in the bottom left, that's going to be a future drainage culvert of some kind. So obviously, in order to install that, they have to impact that area. So you see the red line around it. And then in just some of the steeper areas, they're going to have to impact the road, or I shouldn't say that, the area outside of even the proposed easement in order to construct the road. But again, the agreement that we have right now that would be formalized, that would all be rehabilitated to a certain standard that we approve. That is my summary of the road. I do want to just go back and focus on the fact that, again, why we're here is they're trying to meet the city requirement of the fire department, that fire apparatus access road, which is really triggering this discussion. Did I cover everything, Robert? All right, I think I'm good.
All right, so we did work with the Open Space Commission to discuss this amendment and to develop a recommendation for City Council over the course of a number of meetings. And they did make a recommendation, which I'm going to share here in a few moments, but I do think it's important to just start with some of their general concerns that the Commission had about the potential for a future build-out in this particular location. So some of the concerns they had were respecting the legal rights outlined in the existing easement, ensuring the deed of conservation for the Observatory Mesa Natural Area was upheld and not violated. The proposed right-of-way and the ultimate road construction they deemed was not an overall benefit for the natural area. Originally, the easement was written in 1986, and they pointed out that this is nearly 40 years later, and that things have changed, and the purpose of the property is stated through the voter-approved funds that were used to purchase the property. And thus, city directives are to manage the property for the benefit of the community and for future preservation and recreation. There is also the concern of if a full build-out were to occur, how that would affect the intent of the property by isolating approximately 48 acres of habitat by the bisecting road, whether or not traffic would impact recreation, wildlife habitat, and perhaps the overall ecology of this particular location. Impacts to Hidden Hollow residents was also discussed in a concern, and impacts on the property during the construction and restoring the property after the temporary construction easement was over. So overall, the commission did not see the amendment as a benefit to the natural area. One of the biggest concerns would be the significance of increased traffic. Because they considered including, they did consider including a recommendation to limit the units or ADUs in a hope of lessening the traffic. They ended up not making that a condition, which I'll share in a second here, in their recommendation because they didn't want to infringe on the private property owner's rights. They did think that that was worth consideration, but it was outside their particular purview and more appropriate for council to consider. It's worth noting, however, that this was a really challenging discussion for the commission and that there was concern about the overall impact to the natural area. So with that, this is the Open Spaces Commission's recommendation. The Open Space Commission recommends the request to amend the right-of-way 16-88092 be considered by City Council subject to the conditions in the current right-of-way easement and the following conditions. So require the creation of an HOA to provide legal entity responsible for maintaining the conditions. Require a performance bond for the adjustment of the dirt road to ensure that the work will be completed, to warranty the work for 3 years to ensure proper construction. Require all construction on the natural area property to go through the Arizona State Parks and Trails Conservation Easement review requirements, which include but aren't limited to an archaeological survey, Arizona State Parks and Trails review, State Historic Preservation Office review before construction can begin. During the road construction, require a vegetation specialist who is experienced in restoration ecology and local native plant communities be included in the project team to assist with project planning, direction, construction, observation, monitoring, to document any impacts to the natural area, and to provide prior notification to the open space section impacts and plan mitigation efforts. All sections of the existing roadway that are not utilized in the proposed alignment must be decommissioned and restored to open space standards cited in the restoration guidelines. Require the road to be constructed on the private property where the right-of-way easement currently parallels the natural area on the eastern boundary. Require the parcel owners to revegetate the road's cut and fill locations and abandon alignments to the open space standards cited in the restoration guidelines. Require ongoing road maintenance. Require all future utilities be placed underground in the right-of-way so as not to interfere with view sheds of the natural area. And require dark sky compliant lighting on all light sources within the parcels. So this recommendation was belabored in an effort to recommend a fair solution and hope with these conditions be carried forward by the council. So for the last slide, I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin for chatting about next steps.
Thank you, Robert. So yeah, as Robert mentioned before, we're here just work session. This is really just to give council an opportunity to ask any questions, let the public ask any questions. I know we have some public comment here from a couple of the property owners. And then our next meeting, we will come back, answer any questions you have, fill in any holes in the information the public may want. And then that next meeting will be for potential action. And the action will be essentially to say that council is, I don't even want to use the approve word, that council is good with moving this forward to state parks as conditioned by whatever conditions you agree to and in line with their concept plan. Because again, that concept plan, even after going to state parks, will have to be finalized. They'll have to do a little more detail on it. They're also going to have to draft up the meets and bounds description of the revised right-of-way that we'll have to look at. So there's a little more work they need to do on their end, but we didn't want them to have to do that work until council had a chance to look at this and say whether or not you were agreeable to moving this forward. And again, not to approve the amendment at the next meeting, but at the very least to say whether or not you would consider it in its current form and move it forward to the State Parks Board. And then after State Parks, it would come back, assuming if there's an approval there, for council's final approval of the right-of-way amendment and the conditions that will attach to it.
Thank you. Council questions, and then I will take public comment, and then we can talk about our thoughts on this. First, we have Councilmember House, and then Vice Mayor.
Yeah, Robert, I'm wondering if you can speak more to the rationale of the proposed requirement of an HOA?
Do you want to?
Yeah, that's probably better for me. One of the big first issues we talked about if this road is constructed is maintenance, and that's another condition you saw. In particular, we talked to the property owners about snow clearing and things along those lines. If we're going to put that into an agreement, we need to have an entity to contract with. We didn't want to leave it up to one property owner that they could then sell and have the requirement essentially be tied to one parcel. So the idea we had was for them to create an HOA and all the property owners be a member of it, and then the HOA would be the entity we'd be contracting with essentially to impose those conditions, so that we'd have an HOA to go to if they weren't followed, rather than some property owner who may not even live in Flagstaff.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you so much. I realize that tonight is for questions mostly. I don't want to get too deep into a discussion about this. I think that'll come later. I find myself with a lot of questions. I'm not sure how I feel about this, and I can appreciate how that was. It sounds like that was the case with the commission, Robert, that there's a lot of going back and forth on this. It's a values-based conversation, I think. On the one hand, there's the rights of private property owners, and those definitely need to be respected. I don't think that in and of itself the road creates a lot of disruption to the natural environment. I don't think it creates a problem for the conservation of the landscape as it is. It's a minor disruption. On the other hand, I happen to be of the school of thought that roads can be very problematic, not on the short term, but on the long term. Roads tend to want to connect to each other. And so right now, my biggest questions are about what are the possibilities near and far into the future that we're putting a foot in the door, so to speak, to other road networks up there, to connectivity between 180 and I-40. And I know that in the midst of all this, somewhere in there too, is the concerns about Lowell Observatory and the growth that they're experiencing and the emergency access that they would like to include back entranceway. I'm seeing that once this road is in place and it has been upgraded to a level that is consistent with allowing emergency vehicles through there, there's going to be pressure to connect roads. And I want to explore that a little bit further. Robert, maybe this is more of a question for you, but also I don't know how we bring the Lowell Observatory piece into this. I think they have their emergency access maybe taking, that's underway, and it doesn't involve this process. But just in general, Robert, if you can speak to those concerns. I think you know where they are coming from, so I'll just let you take it in an open-ended way.
Thank you, Councilmember. If you look at the map here, the right-hand corner there in purple, that is Lowell Observatory there. So you can see this is fairly removed from that location. And so we don't foresee a need for connecting down to Lowell. And I believe that they have been working on formulating another alternative access point to their property.
Robert, do you mind going to the next slide too? So again, things can change, and we all know that. And so I'm going to make some comments here, but with the understanding that you never know what happens in the future. So this isn't the word of God by any means. But the properties to the north of the 7 parcels in red, and the parcel to the east are all private. These property owners, one of the things that we asked them to do over the years is to see if there's other access points, if they could access somewhere other than through this easement on the mesa. From what they have told us and our understanding is that is a no-go. that the parcel to the east is actually a park. And someone can give you more detail on that, but it's essentially an area that was dedicated by that neighborhood on the northeast part of this map. Is that Linwood, I think, that dedicated it as a park. So it has restrictions on it.
I've been up there, yeah.
Yeah, and then the parcels to the north are private, and they just haven't been willing to do anything, allow any access. So with respect to any roads connecting, I would think that would be very difficult, if not impossible, we're not going to allow anything to the south, but to the east and to the north, it's just been really nothing. No. That park is blocking it. I think there's a parcel to the far south that's still private, not part of the park, but it also has topography issues as well. So realistically, I think that would be a long shot.
And what about to the west? If you go back to the other slide, there's that big green area there. Talk to me more about that. And we can see the roads. I think, is that the A1 mountain system over there on the back that's sort of hugging the contour of the square to the left?
Yeah, Forest Service Road 515 comes in off of A1 Mountain there. That's the road that you see connecting to Section 12, and then 515A moves there to the north and comes over to Section 6. We currently do not allow motorized traffic in the natural area. However, the Forest Service does own the center parcel, that's Section 7 in the middle there, and they do have an easement to allow access to that center parcel. And so we do not have a gate at Section 12, so motorized vehicles are currently able to come through Section 12 to gain access to Section 7. So this is an issue. Motorized traffic is an issue in the natural area, and we are currently working on a trail plan to help eliminate some of that unauthorized motorized traffic that are moving off-road and formulating user-created roads. And we do hope to address some of that. To my knowledge, there is no interest or desire to connect 515A and the Forest Service Road through Section 6. There are some roads in that particular area, and we do plan to adopt and continue to maintain some of those for admin purposes for access to the property. I also might add that any development that goes on in the natural area does have to go through the state's process of review that we mentioned earlier. So that would include if there was another road proposal in the natural area. Although I will say that we are somewhat constantly on the defense for requests in the natural area. For instance, you did mention ADOT and a connection to I-40 that was on the table a few years ago, and we were approached about that. And we shared all of this information on the conservation easement and said, that's really not an option. So that has been taken off the table for the moment. But always good to forward think about things like that. We are working on a trail plan for the natural area. In fact, the commission just made a motion to move forward with the next steps of public review for that plan. And that plan does plan for some parking in the southern part of the natural area off of old Route 66. This particular region was considered for parking, but due to the sensitivity of the habitat in that particular area, we decided not to move forward with parking in that area. But this is currently a public right-of-way, so it could provide additional access to the natural area.
A couple more questions along that line, maybe just one more. In terms of how the private property would be developed, how stringently spelled out is that going to be? I'm picturing a couple single-family homes, maybe dozens of them, but not like a major, full-on development. No Home Depots up there, et cetera, et cetera. Just speak in general about how far the development of that private property could go.
Thank you for that question, Vice Mayor. So it's a little bit of a difficult answer, which I'll get into, but and you have, like I said, two of the property owners here. You're welcome to ask them what their intent is. I think their answer to the Open Space Commission was they just want to build their dream home. That's why they bought the parcel, and that's what they want to build. With respect to what we could potentially see up there, I think we need a development application to give a really good answer on that, because there's just a lot of factors in play, but I'll give you a couple of them. And Alex, if you don't mind just coming to the mic, because you're probably going to have to correct me, but those parcels are currently zoned rural residential. Rural residential is 1 unit per acre. But with respect to these parcels, because they do not have water or public roads, they're limited to 1 unit for every 5 acres. So if you take the total acreage up there, which is about 115, and divide it by 5, you get to about 23 total units. But again, that assumes that's one gigantic parcel, which it is not. So it really it's going to depend on what comes in the door. But I think for the most part, at least with respect, and maybe you can scroll up to scroll down to the next one where the parcels are. I mean, you have a pretty large parcel at the top, and then the 4 parcels in the middle, and then 2 at the bottom. The parcel at the top, who knows? But the parcels in the middle, I think those are the property owners we have here. I would expect, based on what they've been telling us, that you're probably going to see a single-family home with maybe an ADU on one of those parcels. And I think the parcels to the left are right around 6 acres apiece. So that's all they could do with the current situation of not having water or public roadways. And so then you get into, can you get water and sewer up there? The answer is anything is possible. But I think the property owners will tell you, too, that they've looked into it, and we've talked to our water department or utilities department, and it would be very, very difficult, and even if possible, very, very expensive. So again, it's hard to give you a number, but there are definitely some limitations on what can be done up there based on not only our zoning code and what I just talked about, but that fire apparatus access road also has certain limitations on how many units it can serve. So that's a limitation before they need secondary access, which, as I was mentioning before to your other question, would be very, very difficult to get secondary access up there. So sorry, it's not the clearest answer, but I think maybe the property owners can help you get a better idea of what to expect.
Alex, you didn't even need Alex for that one. Just a couple more questions. So just looking at that map, the density of trees in the lower 2 parcels seem to be much heavier. I'm just wondering what the story is behind that.
So owned by, oh shoot, are they the same owner? Yeah, okay, yeah. We have already talked to them about getting access to those parcels to thin them. The property owners were agreeable to that. We obviously haven't talked about costs there. Hopefully we can find some sort of grant to make it happen. But yes, we've identified those parcels, and our fire department has identified them as 2 parcels that definitely need to be thinned, and the property owners are open to that and willing to let that happen.
Great, thank you. So my only other comment is that the jury is very much still out on this for me. Anything that the property owners can say to alleviate some of the concerns I've articulated, I think they're reasonable and prudent concerns to have, would really help inform the conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Harris.
Just a couple questions. Can we go back to the requirements that they have to do this, experts for this? I didn't see all of them, but if we can go back. Yeah. Okay. Who's supposed to pay for all of that?
The property owners.
So to get the expert, they have to go find that person that has that expertise, hire them, do a contract with them, all of that, correct?
Yeah.
These are the recommendations from the commission.
Yeah, and I will say that some of these are actually in the easement today. I mean, the easement today has a lot of conditions in it regarding vegetation and trees and making sure that nothing is impacted outside of the easement and all of the remediation and restoration. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of it in the current easement. I think the idea is some of this, I think, overlaps, but the commission, I think the first one is that we'd keep everything in the original easement, and then some of this may build on it. But yes, that would be a responsibility of the property owners.
Okay, and I'm assuming that they would get some support in terms of who would meet those expectations?
Of course, I think Robert would be working with them on the individuals that we would expect to see providing that information, or like with respect to the restoration guidelines.
Okay. And then, is there any additional state land up there for sale right now, or any, I shouldn't say for sale, but any additional state land around there that might potentially be for sale? Because this was state land, correct? And the
It
state.
was. This land was purchased from the State Land Department. The State Land Department does own a variety of properties around our community. It's somewhat patchworked. I can certainly pull up GIS and we can take a look at that.
Well, I don't necessarily, I'm just
Pull up
really
the map.
talking about,
Pull up the map. I think you're getting to the green areas around, and that's actually National Forest Service land.
okay, all right.
Councilmember Harris, there's no state land adjacent. There is some south of I-40 in
Okay.
that corridor, but
Okay.
not adjacent to this.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was trying to get to. Let's see. Okay, so when the property was bought by the private owners, does anybody know if there was any discussion at that time about what was possible and what was not, or was that just buyer beware?
I think you'd have to ask the property owners that. The property owners, my understanding is they purchased at different times. Some have owned this property for a lot longer than some of the newer buyers, so, but I think that's a question for them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. When the city bought this property, and did we recognize at that time that there was private property owners kind of in the middle of it and the easement there that gave them some rights to access to their property?
Yeah, and I'll actually, if I can share my screen again, I'll show you the land patent that documented the purchase in 2014. So this is the purchase of the property from the state. You see the state of Arizona in 2014 granting it, or not granting it, but selling it to the city of Flagstaff, and some language here. You see that highlighted subject to existing reservations, easements, or rights of way. So definitely, we knew there was not only this easement there, but we knew it was used to access these parcels to the east. We were definitely aware of that.
Can I add one thing? One thing I'd like to add is that when we did purchase the property from the state, I do believe a notification was sent out to property owners that neighbored the natural area.
So if I understand from some of your maps, the recommended or proposed right-of-ways, the roads to give access to this property and be wide enough and meet all the requirements for emergency vehicles and stuff. For the most part, it parallels what's already been used and has been used with some corrections. Some of it looked like better corrections, instead of being on a slope, being flatter, which would be less disturbance to the natural habitat there. And then if I understood you as well, right now, because there's not really a trails map or outline, people are making their own. I totally understand that. I come from an off-road racing family, and we made a lot of our own trails, right? So in my mind, having a more stable, qualified road would probably encourage maybe people using their ATVs or to use a better terrained road and stay off the forest areas. So I'm not really seeing any problem in this. I think it's a lot of people come up here to Flagstaff to live semi or completely off the grid because we have a beautiful forest, and you know, if the road that you're proposing was cutting through a whole new area and not using the existing easements, and that would be another conversation. But it looks to me from just these graphs and graphics that they're staying fairly true to what was already always theirs to use, but with some improvements that will benefit everybody that needs access, whether it's our first responders or the property owners. So I don't see a big issue in this, at this point.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. This easement gets into one of the properties. Is there an agreement between the 7 property owners that they can go across each other's private land to get to, another parcel? I'm not wording that too well. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I have not seen that document, but my understanding is that's the case, and just got a nod from one of the property owners, and maybe she can speak to that when she comes up.
When you guys come up, maybe you can speak to that and other things.
Additional questions? All right, I'm going to have public comment then. First up, we have Alexis Stack.
Hello. Please forgive my nerves. I never expected to speak to City Council or the Mayor. That wasn't on my lifetime bingo card. My name is Alexis Stack. I am owner with my husband of one of the smaller parcels. It is the smallest top on the screen. It's 2J that are being discussed tonight. So you see the 3 parcels in the middle. Ours is the top one. Just a little bit of background. My family is from Flagstaff, dating back to my great-grandpa coming here in 1916 as a sheep herder for the Babbitt family. And my husband and I grew up here, and we actually met in Spanish class at Coconino. So believe me when I say that Flagstaff is my home and more than just a physical address, and I absolutely understand the importance of preserving it while also exercising my rights as a private property owner who purchased a parcel with an existing right-of-way easement in place. The owners have spent a better part of a year plus at this point meeting with the Open Space Commission and several meetings with other city officials discussing what a change to the existing right-of-way to be mutually inclusive looks like. And I actually think Cody's meetings date back to November of 2022, if I'm correct. At this point, what we're asking for is the legal description of the right-of-way to reflect the alignment of the already long existing dirt road and to also account for some topography constraints. If we aligned with the current description of the right-of-way, this would cause new and greater impact on the undisturbed area, which we do not want, a road next to a road. The adjustment in the legal description of the right-of-way easement is beneficial to the conservation easement, as in the end it results in approximately 0.84 acre smaller footprint and far less surface disruption while still respecting the rights of the private property owners. Excuse me. I pulled up the deed from the county recorder's office for the Growing Smarter property, which is the Observatory Mesa. And on the very first page it states, and Kevin highlighted that earlier, that, quote, "It is subject to the existing reservations, easements, or rights of way heretofore legally obtained and now in full force and effect," end quote. And then again on the 4th page it speaks on the conservation piece. Quote, "Patentee shall allow reasonable permanent access to private lands pursuant to ARS 37-312.01, which states, notwithstanding any other provision of this article, the reclassification of trust lands as suitable for conservation purposes shall not restrict or unreasonably limit access to use or enjoyment of private lands, and any lease or sale of land pursuant to this article shall include a condition requiring that permanent access to and use and enjoyment of private land be allowed," end quote. When you purchase private properties, they sometimes have encumbrances on them. And to answer your question, mine actually has an encumbrance on the title, which is an easement to the parcel to the right of us on this, the 20 acre next to us.
You can continue. The council member asked you this question.
It allows access to that property. I don't like it, but it is an encumbrance on our title, which we have to allow.
So from your lot, you have to allow access to the one to the east of you.
Yes.
What about the other 5 parcels?
Behind us?
Well, there's 2 just south of you. How do they drive to their property?
There's an existing easement, our existing easement with the state land actually parallels those properties back there, and we've agreed to actually move that part of the easement onto our private properties. So we're going to have an additional encumbrance on our properties.
So there will be access to all 7?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
And then, do you mind if I just finish? And then to answer your question, Our intent with our property is to build a small home. It's my husband and I, in addition to an ADU, probably for our aging family members is what that would be used for. As I said, our entire family is from here. So all we're asking is property owner to property owner to work with us to respect our legal existing right-of-way while minimizing the disturbance to the open space. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Cody Routson.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I really appreciate you taking the time to address this issue tonight. I'm Cody Routson. My wife and I own parcel 2L, which is the bottom one of the three in the stack there, the southernmost. Aha, that one. Thanks. Yeah, and first I'd just like to thank the council members, the mayor, and also staff who have spent a lot of time, a lot of meetings helping us navigate this issue. It's been a number of months now, well over a year now, that we've been in this most recent iteration trying to work with the staff and also the Open Space Commission to find a way to access our properties that's amenable to kind of all of the stakeholders that are here. I grew up outside of Prescott. I'm now a research faculty member at NAU. My wife and I bought this property just with the intent to building a home up there. There was a question about buyer beware, and we bought this property with both physical access and legal access that we're aware of also in the state of Arizona. Reasonable access to private property can't be denied, and so while access is more complicated than we were aware, we were also aware of our rights to some extent. The property is within Flagstaff city limits. It's zoned as residential, thus it's the city's implied use of the property is for homes. And so we're here today asking for access consistent with that implied use. The challenge, as discussed very clearly in the presentation by Kevin and Robert, is that the existing legal access or the right-of-way that the landowners are using is, not always in alignment with where the road is. And that road was bladed. It is a built road. There's culverts. It is a primitive road. It has not been maintained, but it is a road that was, bladed in there, I think, in the late 80s, is my understanding. So both of these, both the easement and the road are in the conservation easement, and so that's what's ensuing this challenge of gaining access. And the beep's about to go off, so I'm going to plug my ears. So the right-of-way was granted in 1986. That was well before the current city's access standards, and so it's physically impossible to meet the city's access standards within the right-of-way that is there. The right-of-way was also drawn without any consideration for the topography, and so there'll be considerably more impacts on the open space if we stay within that right-of-way or do our best to stay within it. Let's see.
Councilmember Matthews has a question for you.
And this may be for all the property owners here. We saw a pretty extensive list of conditions. How do you feel about those?
So we've been trying to do our best to meet everybody's concerns with gaining access to our property. We had, I think, over 5 months, 4 meetings with the Open Space Commission, many hours, 7+ hours of meeting time with them. I think we can meet most of these concerns or these conditions. Some of them are, like, again, it's going to be a challenge to meet everything, but we're going to do our best, and I believe we can meet their conditions.
Well, if there's a time to bring up concerns about some of the conditions, I'd suggest you have those conversations sooner than later before it comes back to us, because it did look like a pretty extensive list. A lot of it was reasonable, but a lot of it, I could also see where it would be a big challenge for the small handful of property owners to provide. So I'm not saying one way or the other, but I just want to encourage you, I know you want to get it done, but if it's something that's going to be impossible for the property owners, let's have a discussion now with Kevin and Robert and see what you can work out before it comes back to us for sure.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Any other questions?
Council, other questions? No, I don't see any additional questions. Thank you. Council, what are you thinking? Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you. I do want to thank the property owners for taking the time to be here tonight, and to staff and to the Open Spaces Commission for doing their due diligence. I think they asked some really good questions, and their list is extensive, but this is, it's kind of a big deal. So I'm glad that they are putting them in there. My thought for tonight, I'm feeling that I don't have a lot of reservation, but I do tend to lean towards what Vice Mayor was saying. This could be a slippery slope, no pun intended. And you didn't laugh, Mayor. Anyway. And I don't know if we want to talk more about that tonight or if that's the next conversation, but, putting some guardrails up for the future is something I'd be interested in exploring. Thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy and then Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Considering that they already have a legal existing easement, I think the minor changes to the easement, which are needed to make the road feasible for fire access, et cetera, construction access, consistent with the recommendations of the Open Space Commission, including their list of suggested, I don't know what the word is, rules or conditions. Okay, I'm supportive. I'm very open-minded about this. I have to admit, the first time I heard about this, I went, what? But after I've studied it, and we had an executive session on this today where we got into some detail. Based on that and what I've heard tonight, I am supportive of the proposal.
Thank you. And if I could just jump in real quick, and the comments are perfectly fine. I just want to remind everyone, we're not looking for direction tonight. So we appreciate that, but I just don't want other council members thinking they need to give any sort of determination tonight. You have plenty of time to think on this during your break.
All right, and that doesn't guarantee how I'm going to vote on this on the end. But true. And there may be new questions come up, et cetera, but the way I see it tonight, it seems to make sense.
Councilmember Harris.
Because I sit on as the liaison to the Open Space Commission, I was in the meeting last night and I didn't want to have very much to say in the meeting because I knew it was on the agenda. I'm sensitive and supportive of people's individual rights, and I think whenever possible, we should make sure that we support those rights. The state does a lot of things, and like the land or however they sold this. I guess I'm just concerned that more care wasn't taken in letting people know what potentially could happen, and that's my concern. So I don't want to stand in the way of people building homes. We're in a housing crisis. My goodness, and if we can help folks build a house, then we should do that. So I know we're not taking any direction here, but and I am concerned about all of the conditions. I just think it's just overwhelming. And I wouldn't know how to set up an HOA. So somebody's going to have to teach somebody how to do that. And so anyway, that's probably all I'm going to say right now. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I thought my concerns were reasonable and prudent. I also think the request of the private property owners is reasonable. So I don't want to get too far into decision-making process here yet, because I haven't come to a decision. But in terms of this process moving forward, I can read the room. I think it's going to move forward. I would just say a couple of things. You know, I'm mindful. I'm always mindful of this. Don't mean to be cynical, but this conversation is going to cross city council elections. So, you know, it's already silly season a little bit. And there's going to be a different council that makes a final decision on this than the one that's sitting up here. Just something to keep in mind. I don't really know why I mentioned it, except that it's there. We might as well identify it. And then the other thing, you know, going back to the commission and their recommendations, I would like to hold those up and value those very strongly. It's not a small deal that the land that's adjacent to all this that we're talking about was purchased through voter-approved funds. And I sense that the landowners understand that and recognize that. But the requests and the conditions that are being put on this, again, to overuse the terms reasonable and prudent, seem appropriate to me. This is a conversation that involves more than just the private landowners. It is definitely pertinent to the entire Flagstaff city voter constituency. And I think that the conditions are actually fairly reasonable and allow for this conversation to continue in other contexts on other pieces of land that might be experiencing some similar back and forth. So that's where I'll leave my thinking for now. Thank you very much.
Mayor, can I just make a quick comment to that?
Sure.
With respect to the conditions, and I love your suggestion of Cody meeting with us if he has some concerns. I will note that when the conditions were discussed at the Open Space Commission, some of the members had some similar feelings about the initial draft of the conditions or some of the ones that were on there. And the property owners were given an opportunity to stand up and take issue with some of the conditions. And if my recollection is correct, I think a couple were polled. So I know, and it was really one property owner, the 40-acre parcel up there. He was the one responding to that. But we'll work with them, see which ones are a big concern. But I just wanted to let you know that I think the Open Space Commission did a good job on trying to be as reasonable as possible and giving the property owners that opportunity. And they did take it to comment on some of the ones that they really felt they couldn't meet.
I too would like to thank the Open Space Commission for all the work that they put into considering this. It's very helpful for us to have these kinds of recommendations come to us from a body who has also thoroughly reviewed it. And, you know, I was around when the taxpayers purchased this land and combined it with the Growing Smarter funds to purchase these parcels. So that is top of mind for me, what the intent was with the preservation of this land. I also want to do whatever we can to accommodate what the landowners would like to do with their land while recognizing the purpose that we purchased that land for. So whatever we can do, I would support that. And I would just like, when it comes back to us, if you could let us know whether the Forest Service had anything to say. I know you're already working with them on the overall master plan of the trail system up there, but I guess what I'm looking for is their plans in terms of the potential for roads up there. And so I'd like to know what the Forest Service is thinking. But I'm generally in support of this as well. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the property owners that came out and spoke tonight. Alexis, you had no need to be nervous. You did great. But I think it's really helpful for us to hear directly from you as well what your concerns were and what the challenges are here. I also would like to hear, going to the mayor's comments just now and one of Vice Mayor's questions earlier about those lower two parcels that have a lot of tree density, just some more of the conversation there about the proposals for thinning and keeping that in mind as we're navigating not only considerations for housing development for the property owners, but also fire-wise development and all of those things as part of the same conversations. I'm just curious to hear more of the recommendations for those parcels and any other work that will be happening in that area.
All right, Council, anything else? Councilmember Harris.
I have one more question, and this is for, I guess it's for our attorneys. So I'm assuming that all the members, owners, property owners are in agreement. What happens if one of them decides they don't want to play? Kind of, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, we'd obviously have to work through that. As of right now, my understanding, and we've been going back and forth with Cody, he's sort of been the point person for the property owners, and all of these requests for conditions, and at least the ones that we initially came up with, road maintenance and forming the HOA, so we had an entity to contract with, the property owners have been agreeable to, and I'll turn back to Cody, and he's nodding his head. So they've been in contact, but yeah, well, obviously when we get to that stage, we'll definitely have to make sure all the property owners are on board. But as of right now, my understanding is they are.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you for all your work on this, Mr. Fensel.
No problem.
Thank you, Fixer.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are moving down to open call to the public. I have one in person and one online, and I'm not sure that Stephen Poor is still here. Okay, so then we'll take online.
Mayor and Council, I have Paul Beer. Paul, you may go ahead and address Mayor and Council. Paul, you may go ahead and unmute yourself and address Mayor and Council. It looks like we might have technical difficulties. I'll go to our next commenter tonight. It'll be Sabrina. Sabrina, you may go ahead and address Mayor and Council. Sabrina, you may go ahead and address Mayor and Council.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for letting me speak. I guess I just wanted to add on the last item that was presented. Were you guys aware that the biggest property up above was the one that split his property and made those smaller parcels? So going to one of the council members, I think it was, anyway, I guess I'm just concerned that we are developing a lot of forest land and it's affecting our climate. Anyway, I'll speak more maybe on another agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. Is Dr. Byer able to join us?
Paul, you may go ahead and unmute yourself and address mayor and council.
Mayor, he's been communicating with us through chat, but we haven't been able to get him reconnected or a response. So we'll work with him to have him submit his comments to you via email.
Sounds good. Okay, moving down to item number 14, informational items. Let's start with Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, in accordance to open meeting laws, that I did email city manager and the water department. I still am having some concerns about our water rate that we're getting ready to hear final decision on. And so I sent them a proposal regarding in year 3, adjusting, not having a fixed index for, my mind's going to blank, for inflation, but actually having it adjust, just like, kind of like what we do for minimum wage. And I gave them some parameters, suggested parameters, and I asked to set up a meeting that we could talk to them about it. And so you could, if you wanted to read the details of the email, I'm sure the city manager or Shannon Jones could send it to you, since we can't discuss it except for up here, and I didn't want it to come as an unexpected conversation next Tuesday. But I'm hoping they'll see that it might be reasonable and help reduce some of the concerns that our business and residential communities have about the escalations and how it's going to impact them. And we could actually set it to realistic right now numbers instead of projected numbers that may most likely not be accurate. So I just wanted to let you know in this public forum. And then if you're interested to see more about it, you can ask somebody to forward the email to them. And hopefully I'll be able to meet with them and discuss it further and see if there's possibilities on that. So that's it.
Okay, it looks like it's calmed down a little bit. Why don't we go ahead and give it a try for the moment?
I think everybody can hear me. I attended the State Transportation Board dinner the other night. It was a great activity. We did. I even got to drive an electric bus. Luckily, no one else was on the road except me, but I did get a cone. I have to admit that because there's a picture out there. So
I'm going to attempt to use this. It sounds like it's working, and I know that online they can only hear us when we're mic'd. Very much looking forward to the waterline tour tomorrow morning. Please stay tuned. I may have a doctor's appointment that will interfere with my ability to go, but I've made arrangements to be in contact with Stacy BK about that in the early morning tomorrow. And the only other thing I wanted to be sure to announce is we have a water settlement coming up. It's pretty historic. It's going to be national news. It's a big conversation. It involves lots of moving parts. There's going to be a conversation at the Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Council meeting this Friday morning at 10 a.m., which will take place in person and online at the Public Works Yard here in Flagstaff. I invite all of you to attend or to tune in. I think it's going to be an interesting opportunity to sort of check out the conversation from an angle that's new to us than the angle that we've been having for years and years. Lots of different public, lots of different stakeholders going to be available to sort of process what's happening and ask questions and make comments. So it should be a really interesting conversation, and I'm very much looking forward to it. That's at the Public Works Yard at 10 a.m. on Friday morning.
I too attended the dinner for the State Transportation Board and drove a bus around the circle 2 times. What? And I didn't get any cones because they were already kicked out. And then I also came and made some welcoming comments to the board when we met right here at this desk, and welcomed them to Flagstaff and told a little fun story. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councilmember Sweet? No, not working. No. I'll just say out loud. I'm doing the water line tour tomorrow, the JWP alignment tour on Friday. And for council, I do want to do a shout out to Joanne King. She helped us get a driver of our new EV vehicle, and I am somehow in charge of the parade this year. So if you can all be there at 7:30 to decorate this new EV vehicle, that would be great. Councilmember House?
Just 2 things for me. So last week I had the opportunity to be part of a conversation with Governor Hobbs on different local issues facing communities throughout the state. There was a big focus on housing, and I brought forward just the topic of representation, making sure that the communities in the north and the south are not forgotten
Nothing for me. Thank you, Mayor.